Hello everyone, welcome to What If Naruto Was Considered Loser and Becomes the Prince of the Uzumakis Part 2. Before we start, please go support Javier Ramirez 042 for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. This is the translated version I made. There will be some wrong he or she calling here because it's translated, so let me clear this. Naruto is a male in this story. Chapter 11, First Exam. They were all talking excitedly, when a voice behind them said, "Hey guys, they should calm down a little." They all turned and looked at a silver-haired boy with glasses in front of them with a smile that made Naruto suspicious. "You are the rookies who just left the academy, right?" Shouting like schoolgirls is not correct. "This is not a picnic," the boy said calmly. They noticed how the ninjas around were looking at them with murderous eyes, and the boy continued with a malicious smile. "Everyone is nervous about the exam. So calm down before you cause a scene. Well, I shouldn't threaten them. You are harmless newbies. They remind me of myself before." Sakura looked at him suspiciously and asked, "So this is your second time?" "No. It's the 7th. This exam is given 2 times a year, so this is my 4th year. What do you think if I show you the information I have?" said the boy, showing some cards. "Cards? What are they doing?" Sayuri asked without understanding. But Naruto looked at the cards cautiously, and the boy smiled slyly as he said, "They are basically cards that have information that can be selected with chakra. I have 4 years of information here, more than 200 letters. They look blank, but to open the information on these cards." He put his finger on one of the cards and instantly, the blank surface changed to a diagram with the information of a shinobi. "Wow, an easy-to-read graph. What kind of information is this?" Kiba asked, looking at the card. "This is the information of a shinobi participating in these exams. Is there anyone you're worried about?" the boy asked with a sly smile. Sayuri looked at Naruto, who nodded and said, "Gaara of the Sand, Rock Lee of the Leaf, and Naruto Uzumaki of the Leaf. In that case, I want to know about Sasuke Uchiha of the Leaf," Naruto said, following the game. The boy whistled at such requests and said, "Interesting rivals. Alright, this is getting interesting." He took 4 cards and put chakra on them while everyone looked at him waiting for what he would say. "Okay, first Rock Lee. He is a year older than you. Mission history: D rank equals 25 completed, C rank equals 15 completed, and 1A rank completed. His sensei is Guy. His taijutsu has improved a lot these years. Otherwise, he is not impressive. Last year he gained attention by defeating a chunin rank shinobi, but he did not participate in the exam. It's like you guys, this is his first time from him. On his team are Niji Hyuga and Ten-Ten," said the boy with a smile. Everyone was surprised by the information on his eyebrow, and the boy looked at the second card to say, "Next is Gaara of the Desert. Mission history: rank C equals 8, rank B equals 1. Wow, a rank B mission as a genin. What a visitor from another country is like. I don't have much information, but it seems that I have returned from all the missions without a scratch." Team 7 widened their eyes at this information, and Sayuri was wondering how he didn't get a scratch when the boy continued. "Now let's go with Naruto Uzumaki." Naruto and his companions looked at him carefully and ready for the information he would have while the white-haired man reported. Mission history: D rank, 77 completed, even being unusual for a genin. B rank equals 1 completed, A rank equals 1 completed, and a surprising S rank mission that has had its information kept secret. His sensei is Hatake Kakashi and his companions are Sakura, Haruno, and Sasuke Uchiha. He is a really interesting boy." Naruto stared at him as he thought that Orochimaru had dangerous information in his hands and that he could get them into trouble. Then, the boy gave Sayuri's information as Sasuke, causing everyone to get excited, and Naruto turned to all the participants and shouted at the top of his lungs, "My name is Uzumaki Naruto, and I'm going to kick your asses." This made most of them look at him with murderous eyes. His team looked at him with a big smile, and Naruto thought, "Yes, these exams will definitely be exciting." In the waiting room, everyone was looking at each other with a desire to kill, and Team 7 could feel this on their skin. Then, a sound ninja lunged at Kabuto with his weapon in his arm ready and punched him in the face. Kabuto dodged it easily, but his glasses were destroyed as if he had been hit by something invisible, leaving almost everyone in shock. What happened? He dodged it. How did he do that to his glasses? Sayuri asked without being able to understand it. Then, Kabuto started vomiting on the floor to everyone's surprise, while Naruto looked at the sound team seriously. Orochimaru sent them for his purposes. He asked me if he will go for Sayuri or for me. He thought without taking his eyes off the sound team. How pathetic, especially from a 4-year veteran. Write this in your letters. The 3 ninjas of sound, the future chunin, said the ninja who attacked him with a terrifying expression. Naruto's team looked at them with cold eyes until a cloud of smoke appeared before everyone and a dark voice said, "Keep your mouths shut, bastards." Everyone turned to see a certain jounin with scars, a scarf on his head and an unfriendly look, appear before everyone along with several ninjas with a threatening appearance. Thank you for waiting. I am Ibiki Marino, the examiner of the first test of the chunin exam. Sound guys, stop doing whatever you want before the exam. Do you want to be suspended? Ibiki said with a sadistic smile. The 3 sound shinobi looked at him neutrally, and the leader only walked away while saying, "We're sorry, it's our first time. We'll be careful next time." Bah! It's a good opportunity to say this. You will not fight without my permission, even if you are going to kill each other. I will not tolerate it. Those pigs fail immediately, is that clear? Ibiki said with a voice that was too terrifying. Almost everyone looked at him with fear, but Naruto and his companions only smiled at these words, which Ibiki noticed while smiling. Now we will start with the first chunin exam. Instead of taking the seat they want, they will take a number and sit where they are assigned. Then we will distribute the exams, he said, showing a card with a number. A written exam. I have no problems with these types of exams, but I still find them boring. Naruto thought with a bored sigh. They took the cards to sit, and Naruto sat in seat number 47 next to Hinata, who wished him good luck in the exam. Sayuri sat a little away from him and Sakura also sat a little close to Naruto. Don't turn the exam over yet. Listen to what I have to say. There are important rules in this first exam. I'll write them down as I explain them to you. No questions are allowed, so listen carefully, Ibiki said as he looked at everyone with icy eyes. Rules? What does this mean? Sakura thought without understanding anything. The first rule, they will start with 10 points. The exam is 10 points, if they fail 1 point they will lose 1 point. In this exam points will be subtracted. Basically, if they answer all the questions, they will keep the 10 points. But if they fail 3 questions, they will lose 3 points and you will have 7 left. Ibiki explained without emotion. In other words, if I fail all of them I will be left with 0 points. Naruto thought with some amusement. The second rule, this is a team exam. Passing or failing will be determined by your team's score. Then, the teams will compete to see who maintains more points than the initial 30. Ibiki continued as he wrote. That means if I fail, the rest of the team will fail too. Naruto thought as he smiled graciously. Okay, and now the most important rule. Third rule, during the exam, if any of the examiners are caught copying, 2 points will be deducted. Therefore, they may lose all their points during the exam and be expelled. We have our eyes on you. Make a pathetic attempt to copy and you will be struck down. To be chunin level ninjas, be prudent ninjas. Ibiki continued with a malicious smile. Naruto looked at him with a frown and thought. The game of cheating on exams? Couldn't they have come up with something better? And the last rule, if one loses all his points during the exam, he will be suspended along with his classmates. Ibiki concluded with a look of death. This left Sakura open-mouthed as she still thought Naruto sucked at the written exams. Naruto looked at her with a calm smile, and she couldn't help but feel a little relieved by this. The exam lasts 1 hour. Start, Ibiki shouted, starting the exam. Hearing this, everyone turned over their exam sheet to begin the test. Naruto looked at his test with a frown as he noticed the questions asked for a chunin and smiled as he began to write on the paper. Meanwhile, Sayuri and Sakura were calm as one copied the answers with her Sharingan and the other responded normally. Time passed and many participants were suspended for cheating until time ran out and Ibiki said, "Okay. Now we will say the 10th question." Everyone looked at him carefully waiting for what the question would be and the instructor smiled as he said, "Before I say it, I will tell you the rules of this question. These are the rules of despair. First, for the 10th question, you must answer whether you answer it or not." This left most of them in shock and Sakura tensed at this. "Choose? What happens if we do and choose her?" Temari asked without understanding. Ibiki looked at her with an internal smile as he thanked her for this opportunity to put more fear in everyone and replied, "If you don't answer it, your points will be reduced to 0. You will have failed along with the 2 members of your team." "What does that mean?" shouted one of the participants. "Then of course we will decide to answer it," said another. But Ibiki smiled evilly and continued, "And now the other rule. If they choose to answer it and answer it wrong, that person will lose the right to take the chunin exam forever." This left almost everyone in shock and one of the participants shouted, "What kind of stupid rule is that? There are guys here who have taken the exam before." Ibiki laughed evilly at this and most looked at him in fear. "You guys are out of luck. This is my year, these are my rules. But I'll give you another way out. You can choose not to answer it and try next year," he said in a terrifying voice. Most of them looked at him with sweat coming down from their bodies while those remembered smiled at this fun. Now the 10th question begins. If you don't want to answer it, raise your hand. When your number is confirmed, you can leave," Ibiki said, concluding the explanation. Instantly, several participants left the room as they resigned and the number of genins in the room decreased more and more. Naruto and his team watched this calmly when the 2 girls noticed how Naruto raised his hand with some trembling under the perplexed gaze of Ibiki and those who knew him. "Naruto?" Sakura thought when she saw him. "What is this idiot up to?" Sayuri thought a little angry. And before everyone's stunned gaze, Naruto slammed his hand against the desk and screamed at the top of his lungs, "Do not underestimate me, I will not run, I'll answer it even if I'm a genin forever, I'll be the next Hokage anyway, so I'm not careful, I'm not afraid." Everyone looked at him with wide eyes and Sakura smiled proudly as she thought, "Well done, Naruto. You are proving to be the best shinobi ever." "Good. I was worried that he would do something crazy, but he proved to be a great shinobi. Now I am calmer," Sayuri thought with a smile. Ibiki looked at him with a malicious smile and said, "I'll ask you again. Your life depends on your decision. This is your last chance not to answer it." Naruto looked at him with eyes full of challenge and determination to say, "I will keep my words. That's my ninja way." Everyone looked at him with pride for that statement, and Ibiki smiled at the Uzumaki's determination as he thought, "This Brad is interesting. I take away the concerns of others and now there are almost 87 left. More than I expected." He looked at the other examiners to see if it was time and said, "Good decision. Now I just have to say, congratulations on passing the first exam." Most of those who remained looked at him confused and after a few seconds, a single question could be heard in the air. "What?" To the remaining 87. "Congratulations on passing the first exam," Ibiki said with an amused smile. Everyone was speechless and Sakura asked, "Wait, what does that mean? Have we really passed? What about the 10th question?" Ibiki smiled hugely and said, "There has never been a thing like this. You can say that the 10th was choosing whether to do it or not." This made almost everyone's eyes widen, as Naruto had deduced about it, and Temari shouted in disbelief, "Hey, so what about the remaining 9 questions? There are still 9 points left." "There are no more points left. They have met the objective. This exam was to test your ability to gather information. That was the purpose," Ibiki said happily. "What a change in personality," Naruto thought, looking at him amused. "Collect information?" Temari asked without understanding. "First, the rules I explained. Success depended on how the team did it. It was put in place to make some members feel bad for their peers. The exam questions could not be answered by genins. So, I'm sure most people have come to the same conclusion. To get points, they had to copy. Basically, the goal of this exam was to cheat. The target for copying were two chunins who knew all the answers to help them answer the questions. Ibiki explained seriously. Man, it was safe to find that guy, said one of the participants with a laugh. But some tricks will fail, of course, Ibiki said as he took off his headgear. As he did so, everyone was speechless when they saw that his head had burns, screw holes and scratches, proof that he had been tortured in his life as a shinobi. Naruto was the only one who remained calm since he had seen scars like those on some of the shinobi from his village when they returned from a mission. Sometimes, information is more important than your life. And in missions and on the battlefield, people risk their lives to achieve it, Ibiki explained with eyes full of experience. Everyone looked at him with trembling because of his scars, and the jounin continued as he put the protector back on his head. If the enemy or a third person finds out, there is no guarantee that the information is reliable. I hope you remember, important information in your hands can be a powerful weapon for your comrades and your village. So get information without anyone else finding out. And so we eliminate the worst. But I still don't understand the last question, Temari said with a drop of sweat. Ibiki smiled again and said, but the 10th question was the real purpose of this exam. Everyone looked at him with wide eyes and Sakura asked, what does it mean? Let me explain it. The 10th question, deciding to answer or not answer, is the question. It has been a difficult decision. The two options were to choose between your companions or for yourself. They could have chosen the opportunity to take the exam again. A difficult decision, Ibiki said with an amused look. Everyone looked at him with doubts for that explanation, and Ibiki continued explaining. Let's take another example. Let's say they have become chunins. Your mission is to steal a secret document. The number of enemies, their abilities, they are unknown. And of course there may be traps around you. Now, would they accept or not? Because you don't want to die, because you want to hurt your friends. Could you avoid that dangerous mission? The answer is no, no matter the danger. There are missions that they will not be able to avoid. The ability to have courage and survive difficulties. That is the skill they will need to be chunin captains. Those who are not able to face their destiny, those who let themselves be carried away by an uncertain future, those who leave that opportunity. Those idiots are not able to keep their decision firm, they lack what it takes to become chunin, that's what I feel. Naruto laughed internally as he thought. This guy is saying it because of my action a while ago. Can an idiot who shouts not to give up really become captain of a team? Irony is funny. You have chosen to try. By answering the 10th question correctly, you are able to survive any problem in the future. They have passed the first chunin selection exam. I wish you good luck, guys, Ibiki said, looking at Naruto with a proud smile. Naruto smiled knowingly and shouted excitedly. Heck yes, we wish it too. Interesting boy, Ibiki thought with amusement. But at that moment, a brown stain entered through the window, destroying it, and instantly, two kunai were stuck in the wall to show a banner that said, "The Hexy and already engaged Mitarashi Anko enters the scene." Always the same, thought Ibiki and Naruto with an amused smile. It's not time for celebrations. I am the second examiner of the exam, Mitarashi Anko. Now let's go, said a woman with purple hair combed in a pointed ponytail, an open brown trench coat that showed off a chain-mail outfit that left little to the imagination, and a very short skirt. Naruto smiled when he saw her and thought, well, I just didn't like that my effort to put in the answers was in vain. But anyway, let's go to the second test. Chapter 12, Anko and the Second Exam. Everyone was looking at Anko with a drop of sweat, and she was just with a big smile on her face. Then, Ibiki looked at her and said, I'm still here. Anko just stood looking at those who had been left in the test and noticed Naruto, making her smile more. Naruto just gave her some discreet signs, making her understand that she had to continue keeping up appearances, and she understood, so she said, 87? Ibiki, you let at least more than 25 teams pass the exam was very easy. This time there are many exceptional ones, Ibiki said with an amused smile. Anko smiled with the same amusement, as she knew that 3 of those teams were sent by her beloved Foxy-kun's grandfather for the plan, and that Naruto's team had to reach the finals one way or another. Bah, it doesn't matter. There will be less than half left in the second exam, she said with a voice full of fun. Less than half? Sakura thought when she heard that. Anko looked at Naruto and said, I'm excited and only my favorite fun can relieve me. I will explain to you when we go to the place, follow me? And with that, she retreated out the window like a bullet, and the participants followed her with some fear because of her words. Naruto just laughed in amusement, since Anko had said that to him. Now he had to go to her to make her happy, although he liked her too. When everyone left, Ibiki picked up the exams, and when he picked up Naruto's exam, he saw a storage seal on it that caused him interest. She put chakra into it, and took a leaf that said, Your exam was good, but not as good as the ones I had to take in my village. I guess the stupid advice had something to do with an exam as simple as this one. But still, I had fun. Here are the details of the plan of my grandfather, Orochimaru Uzumaki, the Uzumakis of the new Yuzu and Hokage Gigi. You have inspired my respect, and that is why you are worthy of being part of the plan. With all the respect you deserve, Naruto Uzumaki, the prince of the Uzumakis. Ibiki smiled happily and thought, He is certainly your son, Kushina-san. It seems that I was not wrong with him. At least he has your grace, friend. Later. Everyone was in front of huge gates that separated them from a huge forest, and some were nervous because of the danger, keep away that were all over the gate. Welcome to the second exam phase, practice arena number 44. Also known as the Forest of Death, Anko said with a sadistic smile. Naruto looked at the forest with amusement, and Sakura said, It looks a little creepy. Anko listened to her and said with a smile full of bad things, Very soon you will know why it is called the Forest of Death. You will soon know why it is called the Forest of Death. Do you think you scare me? That's nothing. I'm not scared, Naruto shouted mockingly. Anko looked at him with wide eyes for a moment, but then she saw how Naruto smiled at her with such an excited smile, and she could understand that he was teasing because he wanted that. She smiled with the same excitement and said, Yes, your spirit. Then, a kunai flew past Naruto quickly, falling a little far from a black-haired woman with a straw hat, and instantly, Anko appeared behind the blonde to lick the blood that came out of him while saying, Guys like you die quickly, hee, squeezing out this red blood that I adore so much. Naruto looked at her with an excited smile and whispered, You miss me, my dear snake. Don't start your games, my beloved Foxy-kun. You know you have me very excited and you owe me some fun. When this exam is over, I will see you in your room in the tower so we can have fun how we alone know how to do it. Anko whispered, discreetly licking her ear with lust. But they both felt a person approaching, and Anko took out another kunai from her trench coat to point it at the same woman in a straw hat who approached to give her the other kunai with a strangely long tongue. Here is your kunai, the woman said with a serpentine voice. Naruto looked at her with narrowed eyes, as he had only heard and read of one person who acted like that in his life, and he didn't like what he felt from her with his censor. Thank you. But you should know that you shouldn't sneak around me unless you want to die, Anko said, taking the kunai cautiously. No. I was just excited to see the red blood. Also, you cut my precious hair, the woman said with amusement. Hinata was on high alert since she had also sensed who it was, and Sakura just looked at the two women thinking that they were a bit strange. I'm sorry about that. It seems we have a lot of bloodthirsty people in this exam. Hee, this should be fun, Anko said with an amused smile. Naruto looked at her with concern and thought, Haven't you realized who he is? She should have done so, having been with him in the past. I'll have to talk to her during the test. Now, before starting the second test, here is something I want you to share. You must sign these forms, Anko said, taking out some papers. Everyone looked at her with a drop of sweat, and Anko just said with a big innocent smile, If any of you died and did not have your signatures, I would be responsible, hee. Anko-chan, don't have fun with other people's misfortunes, Naruto thought with an internal chuckle. I'm going to explain the second test to you. You can sign here and then each team will check the booth behind me. Now I will explain the second exam. Simply, it's an extreme survival challenge, Enko said with a bit of seriousness. Extreme survival? Man, this exam sucks, Shikamaru thought lazily. Enko stood in front of everyone and showed them a scroll. She began to explain. First, I will explain the area where we are now. Around arena number 44, there are 44 entrances. Forests, rivers, and a tower in the center. From the gates to the tower there are 10 kilometers. During survival here, you will have to complete a mission. Using their weapons and jutsus, they will have to complete a scroll battle. Everyone looked at her with open eyes and one participant asked, Parchments? That's it, Enko said with amusement. Then, he showed 2 scrolls, one white and the other black. They will fight for these 2 scrolls, that of heaven and that of earth. There are 87 people, so that's the same as 29 teams. About 14 will take the heaven scroll and the other 15 will take the earth scroll. To pass this exam, your team must reach the tower with both scrolls, Enko explained with a smile. Then maybe 14 or 15 teams will go to the next exam, Sakura said seriously. Enko smiled sadistically and said, But there is a time limit. This second exam lasts 120 hours. Exactly 5 days. 5 days? Ino shouted, not believing it. What about the food? Choji shouted upset. Naruto sighed when he heard them and thought, They are fools. A ninja must carry out the mission with what he has and must complete it even if it lasts for many days. You manage as best you can. The forest is full of food. Be careful with people eating monsters, poisonous insects, poisonous plants, and many of you will not pass. As the days pass, each one will become longer than the last and the time to recover will be shorter. And the area is full of enemies, they won't sleep much. Besides, it's not the only thing they can lose other than the scrolls. Some will lose their lives, of course, Enko said with pure amusement. This made Sakura tremble a little, but she felt Naruto take her hand and squeeze it gently, showing that he was with him, and she felt a great calm in her soul. Now I am going to talk to you about the disqualification. First, reach the tower with both scrolls, after the time limit you have passed. Second, if they have lost a partner or died. Those are the rules, there is nothing more, they will be in the forest for 5 days. And one more rule. They can't look inside the scrolls until they reach the tower, Enko said with a smile. What happens if we do it? Naruto asked to add some suspense to the game. Enko looked at him with an amused smile, thanking him for the question and said in a mysterious voice. They will be surprised if they do. How mid-grade ninja can be entrusted with delivering secret messages. That's the whole explanation. The patch will be given to you when you submit the forms. So, pick a door and get ready to go. Oh, and one last piece of advice, don't die. He looked at Naruto with eyes that reflected concern and thought. Especially you, Foxy-kun. Naruto agreed, and like that, everyone filled out the scrolls and handed them into a tent individually so that the teams wouldn't know who had which scroll. Naruto was chosen by both companions to take the scroll and they went to door 12 to begin the test. When everyone was already in position, Enko shouted. Everyone, follow the instructions and go to your doors, we'll start in 30 minutes. Then, Naruto discreetly created a clone and he went to Enko disguised as one of the examiners to whisper to her. Enko-chan, I'm Naruto. I am here to warn you that a certain creeping serpent is among us. This is the woman who gave you the kunai when you approached me. This made Enko tremble at what that meant, and she whispered upset. Foxy-kun, please get out of the test. I don't want him to kill you. Naruto just smiled slyly at him and asked. Hibi-chan, do you think I can handle him? I may not be able to defeat him yet, but I can get out of a fight with him alive. Don't worry, I'll take care of stopping him from any plans he has in this exam, and I'll get to the tower to play with my beloved snake. You go to Hokage Gigi and tell him about this so he is prepared. Enko looked at him with eyes full of seriousness and said in a strong voice. You better get to the tower for that game, or I promise you that I will go to hell to torture you myself. Naruto smiled at her with amusement, and gave her a quick kiss on her lips before disappearing in smoke. Anko looked at the sky and said with all the longing in her heart, "May the whirlpool protect you, Foxy-kun." Then he saw that 30 minutes had passed and shouted, "The second test of the chunin exam begins now." And so, the doors opened to let the 29 teams enter the Forest of Death. Naruto's team stood in front of the forest while the blonde said, "Come on, it's time for us to show some of our true potential. If any of our companions appear, don't back down, and show them your power. Our goal is to reach the tower safely and move on to the next test. Are you ready?" Yes, they both shouted with emotion. And just like that, Team 7 entered the Forest of Death for the second test. Chapter 13, The Second Test. All the teams moved through the forest at high speed to find a team and obtain the scroll they were missing. Among them, Hinata teammate was stopped in an area of the forest, and Kiba said, "So, basically everyone is heading to the tower, right? So, placing traps near there will be the best." But Hinata had already seen a team watching them from a tree, and using her shy facade, she said to her companions, "KK Kiba-kun, see, I think HHO someone there," she whispered in her shy disguise. Kiba looked out of the corner of his eye at the place where the three opponents were and said with a smile, "What a speed, where are they?" The three genin who were watching them were considering how to attack them, when one saw how his partner had remained very still and was trembling a lot. Upon looking better, he saw some large leeches sucking on his neck, and the next moment, more leeches fell on them, causing them to fall to the ground in front of Team 8. One of them stood up and heard Kiba's voice saying, "Konoha leeches are capable of sensing life forms and attacking in groups. 5 minutes sucking you and you will be in the next world. With this and setting the traps, where will the enemy escape now? One less." Hinata rolled her eyes at his words, since this plan would have come up with a well-trained ninja, and looked into the forest as she thought, "How are you doing, Naruto-kun and your companions?" At that moment, one of the captured people gave a scream full of horror, and Hinata thought, "Oh please, behave like a real shinobi and not like a girl." In another area, "That was a human scream, right?" Sakura asked, looking at the forest seriously. Team 7 was in an area of the forest, looking for a nearby team so they could take the scroll they needed, and were making a plan when they heard the piercing scream. "Don't worry, Sakura-chan. She was surely a victim of some team that took the scroll from her. She just asked me who she was a victim of her. If it was her Deella, then may Kami have it in her glory, Deella," Naruto said with some trembling. "I can't see her torturing someone after having seen her so kind and gentle with everyone," Sayuri said with a frown. "Do you really think he's not capable? He's done it to me when I tried to hide the truth from him once, and he wasn't pretty. That gentle nature is a very useful mask when it comes to torturing. Imagine being calm in front of a girl that you see as so gentle and pure, and then being faced with a dark and deadly smile that only transmits death and tragedy. Since that torture, I swore never to hide anything from her again, much less anger her," Naruto said with great trembling. Then, he felt something on his body and became a little nervous as he said, "Sorry, but I have to go to the bathroom. Stay here until I return and don't trust anyone." With that, he left to go to the bathroom, and when they were alone, Sakura asked Sayuri, "Shall we spy on him?" Sayuri fell to the ground because of that question and shouted at him with a red face, "What are you saying? Why would we go spy on him?" "Well, we could know how tall he is. Are you not interested? Although I suppose it must be huge," Sakura said thoughtfully. Sayuri looked at her with wide eyes and asked with a huge blush on her face, "Are you talking seriously? Why are you interested in that now?" Sakura looked at her with serious eyes and said, "Come on, don't tell me you're not interested. I can assure you that Hinata has already seen it, either in plain sight or with the Byakugan." Hearing that, Sayuri stayed still, and Sakura could see how her body trembled with fury and sighed when she saw that it was like her and Ino with their rivalry. "Don't worry, it was a joke. It's better to leave that kind of thing for when we're more mature," she said, trying to lighten things. But at that moment, Naruto appeared before them with a smile and said, Man, she was full. I feel great. Sayuri and Sakura looked at him with murderous eyes and both threw a punch at him that sent him straight into a tree, destroying him in the process. The Naruto they hit was left on the ground defeated, and instantly, a screen of smoke was shown to reveal a genin with a mask. Naruto was right. We can't trust anyone, Sakura said with a cold look. Sayuri began to search for him to see if he had the scroll they needed until she finished and said, "Nothing. It seems that he was sent to find a team and take the scroll from them. One of his companions must have it, and must be waiting for his companion." Then they saw how Naruto appeared and said, "I see that they have managed to take care of one." Sayuri looked at him with cold eyes and said, "How do we know it's you?" Naruto smiled and then, his eyes turned the Uzurigan a flaming red color, and he created fire in his hand. "This is sufficient proof. You know that only a mainline Uzumaki can do this," Naruto said with a kind smile. Sayuri and Sakura calmed down at this, and Sayuri said, "That's good. It will be better for us to have something that can identify us from the imposters. Some sign or password." They thought about it a little, and Sakura said in a very low voice, "I have an idea." They both looked at her carefully and listened to her plan. Nearby, a woman in a straw hat watched them from the swamp and listened to their conversation. "We will create a password for these occasions. Listen, if they mess up the password, assume they're the enemy, no matter what they look like. Listen carefully because I will only say it once: the ninja, weapon, poem. When asked, they will respond with, 'A ninja waits patiently hidden from numerous enemies.' A ninja must know the right moment to act and wait for the enemy's exhaustion or mistake," Sayuri said seriously. "Okay," Sakura said with a smile. "Wait, that's impossible to memorize," Naruto said with annoyance. "You are stupid? I memorized it easily," said Sakura, looking at Naruto with anxiety. The woman submerged herself in the swamp while thinking. What a clever plan. Then Sayuri stood up and said, "I will guard the parchment." But at that moment, Naruto felt a cut on his cheek and quickly realized what was happening. "Careful," he shouted. At that moment, a huge gust of wind attacked them and separated them. Nearby, the woman was with her two companions and said to them, "You can stay here. I'm going alone." Moments later, Sayuri was coming out of a bush she took shelter in when she saw Sakura approaching her. "Sasuke." "Wait," Sayuri shouted, pointing her kunai at him. "Stay away. First, she the password. The poem weapon." Sakura looked at her with serious eyes and putting her arm in front of her, she began to recite. "A ninja waits patiently hidden from numerous enemies. A ninja must know the right moment to act and wait for the exhaustion or error of his enemy." Sayuri looked at her for a while and then smiled as she said, "Well, it's you." Then Naruto appeared before them as he said, "Are you guys okay?" Sayuri and Sakura looked at him with cold eyes and Sayuri said, "Wait a second, Naruto password. I know. A ninja waits patiently, hidden from numerous enemies. A ninja must know the right moment to act and wait for the exhaustion or mistake of his enemy," said Naruto, scratching his head. Sayuri and Sakura looked at him with murderous eyes and both threw a kunai at him, making him dodge it with agility. "It seems that this time it is someone quite agile to dodge," Sayuri said coldly. "And also someone smart," Sakura said seriously. Then Naruto before them looked at them with an evil smile and a screen of smoke exploded where he was like a hissing and screeching voice said, "Kukukuku, impressive. How did they know he was an impostor?" The same woman who had approached Naruto and Anko with a malicious smile appeared before them. Both girls looked at her with very serious eyes and Sayuri said, "We knew that someone was listening to us underground, so Sakura came up with a very brilliant plan." Flashback. The three of them had crouched down, and Naruto used a branch to write on the ground. "Someone is listening to us." They both agreed, and Sakura used another branch to write. "I know. For this reason, I have a plan to identify us without him finding out, but we must talk about a cover plan so that they do not discover the real one." Sayuri agreed and wrote with a branch. What's the plan? Sakura wrote. We will use stamps on our forearms to know if we are the real ones. With the sealing ink we have, we will make an invisible seal that Erashir-sama taught us, and when we want to know if our partner is the real one, he must show the seal by putting chakra on it. Sayuri wrote. Good idea. That way, when we say the password that I am going to dictate to you, we will also show the signal so that we know that we are the real ones. Naruto looked at Sakura with a smile and wrote. Well done, Sakura-chan. Your intelligence combined with my clan's Fuinjutsu can create great wonders for any mission. Sakura blushed at such praise from Naruto, and thus, the three of them drew an invisible seal on their forearm to identify themselves as real ones. Meanwhile, Sayuri explained to them about the passwords so that the eavesdropper would overhear them and fall into their trap. End of flashback. It was thanks to Sakura that we were able to know that you were an impostor. That's all you need to know, Sayuri said with a smile. The woman smiled evilly and said, I see. They are not tired, but are they ready? This is going to be more fun than I thought. They both felt a chill down their spines, and Sayuri thought, I do not like this. Where are you, Naru? Meanwhile, somewhat far from there, Naruto was standing on a branch after holding on to it in that taste and looked towards the forest with a bad feeling. I do not like this. I feel that there is more danger than previously believed. This chakra I feel is unusual. It is similar to Hokage Gigi, and there are only a few people with this type of chakra. Also, I don't like these feelings of malice that I feel in front of me, he said with serious eyes. Then, a huge shadow rose behind him and his could be heard, revealing a giant snake intent on eating him. The snake lunged at him and the blonde remained still in his place, with no signs of moving, until he said with pure annoyance, No, I prefer Anko's snakes more since they are calmer and more adorable. Get lost. At that moment, his eyes turned a windy green color and a huge taste of wind was launched from the blonde towards the huge snake, cutting it into several pieces. Instantly, the pieces of the snake disappeared into smoke and Naruto saw this with cold eyes. There is only one other person in the world capable of summoning snakes other than Anko. Damn creeping snake! I shouted with anger. With that said, he boosted himself with chakra to increase his speed and jumped from tree to tree while thinking. If that bastard attacked us, it's because he's looking for something more than the scroll and passing the test. There is only one thing that may interest that snake on our team, and that is the Sharingan. That means he is after Sayuri-chan and infiltrated her exams to get to her. I must hurry. They are both in danger. Chapter 14, Battle in the Forest. With Sayuri and Sakura. The two were in front of the woman from the rice field, who looked at them with a crooked smile, and they were analyzing how to face such a guy now. Sayuri was looking at the woman cautiously just like Sakura, and she was thinking, This girl is creepy. Where is Naruto? The woman smiled mockingly and taking out her scroll de Ella from her robe de Ella, she said, You want my earth scroll, right? Because you have the one from heaven. Then, he proceeded to swallow the scroll he had before the horrified gaze of the two genin, and when he swallowed it completely, he said, Now let's start the battle for the other scroll, with their lives at stake. They both watched in terror as the woman detached part of her face with a macabre smile, and the next moment, both were impaled by two kunai on her forehead. But in reality, everything turned out to be false, and Sayuri thought in panic, Genjutsu? But he felt a huge discomfort in his stomach and began to vomit on the floor while thinking seriously. No, this is just fear. The killing instinct in his eyes is the cause of an image to kill. Who is this girl? He looked next to him and found Sakura trembling, so he clicked his tongue while thinking. Damn, this woman has managed to make us both afraid. If we don't survive until Naruto arrives, it will be the end of us. You can't move anymore, the woman said in a sadistic and mocking tone. Sayuri looked at her angrily at those words and took out a kunai while thinking angrily. Move on, you trained with Arashujiji, you can't lose this woman. Then, the woman threw some kunai at the black-haired woman, and she dodged them as best she could. The kunai were stuck in a tree, but the woman watched with an evil smile as there was blood on the ground. She watched as there was no one before her and smiled as she walked towards the trees. He has made a wound in his own body to eliminate fear with pain, and he has taken his companion from her to not let her die. And I thought she was an ordinary prey, she thought with amusement. Sayuri was in a tree with Sakura by her side, while she took out the kunai that she had embedded herself to escape from fear and was watching the woman to act. She watched as the woman walked very calmly through the trees and thought, "It's very strong. We must find a way to confront her and take the scroll from her so we can go to the tower. If only Naruto was with us, we could have many more opportunities. He is the strongest link on the team." But he could hear hiss behind them, and when he looked, he saw with horror how a snake was lunging towards the two to eat them. The black-haired girl jumped just in time with Sakura in her arms to avoid her, and she thought furiously, "Damn, I was so focused on it that I didn't feel the snake." The snake coiled around the tree to follow them and lunged again at the two to devour them. Sayuri saw the woman's eyes in her and threw some kunai at him, while he screamed in panic, "Get out of me!" The kunai hit the huge snake, and it fell dead on a branch of the tree. Sayuri hid behind another branch while breathing hard, with Sakura hiding in another tree while thinking of a strategy to survive how she was taught. But they watched in horror as the snake's skin opened and the sane woman with her macabre came out of it. Smile. You should not relax at a time like this. The prey must always try its best to escape, in the presence of a predator. With that, his body began to stretch to curl around the trunk of the tree, and Sakura watched this with wide eyes. But then, the woman was stopped by a taste of wind that she had to dodge, and upon looking at the source of the attack, she found a certain blonde looking at them with a smile. "I return the taste of wind from before, Genin of Rice Country," he said with a sly smile. Naruto, Sayuri, and Sakura shouted with joy. The woman looked at the blonde with an amused smile and said, "Kukukuku. I see you have arrived, Naruto-kun. You seem to have an affinity for the element of wind, something unusual for Konoha shinobi. That causes me a little interest in you." Naruto looked at her with narrowed eyes as he thought seriously. "Damn, this is complicated. It's clearly Orochimaru, and his target must be Sayuri-chan. This became very bad since I cannot reveal my true strength to him, or his interest will shift towards me. I think I'll have to fight with my idiot disguise, but with every intention that the three of us survive. How Grandpa taught me, fight with the intention that your team survives, not with the intention of winning." Then, he looked at the woman with a stupid smile and shouted like the biggest idiot. Hey, it seems like you're rescuing the weak, Sasuke." Sayuri and Sakura looked at him with wide eyes, and Sayuri thought in frustration, "But what is this idiot doing? We are in a very dangerous situation and he still maintains his stupid mask? Fight seriously and... Wait, if he still maintains his idiot mask, it must be for something very serious. Now that I know Naruto better, I can know that he doesn't do things for nonsense and always has a valid reason behind it. So this woman is more problematic than we think for him to keep his mask on her. I guess we should play Naruto's game to get out of here." Sakura looked at Naruto with analytical eyes and had the same train of thought as Sayuri. Naruto still maintains his idiot mask in this situation, so this woman must be more dangerous than we think. Apparently, if Naruto reveals what she really is, she may prove a danger even to him. In that case, it would be best to support him in disguise and make sure we survive. Sayuri was thinking of some plan to keep the woman's attention dispersed on the three, with the intention of dispersing her strength, and she came up with something that might work. She took out the scroll and said in her Sasuke costume, "I will give you the scroll. Please take it and leave us." Sakura widened her eyes at this action, while Naruto looked at Sayuri with a small smile, already knowing what she was doing. He showed a furious look and shouted loudly, "Sasuke, what the hell are you saying? Why would you give the scroll to the enemy?" The woman smiled mischievously and looked at the two as she said with amusement, "I see, very elegant. The only way for the prey is to escape from the predator. And for that, the best way is to give the predator another meal." Naruto narrowed his eyes at her, realizing that Orochimaru was a bigger problem than he had imagined. Sayuri threw the scroll at the woman as she shouted, "Take it." However, the scroll was grabbed out of the air by Naruto, who fell next to Sayuri with a furious look. "Fool, what are you doing? Do you understand the situation?" Sayuri shouted at him in her role as a furious Sasuke. Naruto just looked at her with a look that said to the Uchiha, "Forgive me for this, Sayuri." And with that, he delivered a blow to the Uchiha's face that sent her into the branch and caused the woman to widen her eyes. Naruto had made sure the blow wasn't too hard, but he would later apologize for it. He looked at Sayuri, who had landed a little away from him while she was rubbing her bruise, and shouted angrily, "Do you know what is happening?" Sakura looked at the woman carefully, and seeing her paying close attention to the two of them, she smiled secretly as she thought, "Well, it seems that you have fallen into the plan. With her attention on both of us, she will be very busy and we will be able to attack her more successfully." Naruto looked at Sayuri with a look that conveyed fury and shouted, "I have forgotten the password, so I can't check it, but is he pretending to be Sasuke?" "Hummock. I'm the real Sasuke," Sayuri shouted, following the game. "Liar," Naruto said with contemplation. The woman saw this with a malicious smile and heard how the blonde said with all the fury he had, "No way, a stupid coward like you is the Sasuke I know." This made Sayuri's eyes open, as she listened to him as if he said that the Sayuri he loved would never be a weak and cowardly woman. She felt a warm feeling inside her, and her cheeks flushed even in her Sasuke costume. "I don't know how strong this guy is, but what guarantee do we have that if we give him the scroll he will let us free?" "You are the only one who is not understanding the situation," Naruto shouted with extreme seriousness. Orochimaru looked at the blonde with an amused smile and said with a sadistic tone, "Kukukuku. Naruto-kun. You're right." This made everyone look at him with wide eyes, and the snake Sannin continued saying with amusement in his voice, "Because I can kill them and take the scroll." She rolled up the sleeve of her dress to reveal a seal on her forearm, one that Naruto instantly recognized and bit his thumb to run his blood through it. Naruto launched himself at him, knowing that another summon could harm the strategy, and shouted angrily, "Be quiet." "No. Run away, Naruto," Sayuri shouted with concern in her voice. Naruto just continued on his way towards the Sannin while saying to a certain fox inside, "Kurama, I'll need some of your help. Give me your chakra so he thinks I'm being influenced by your malice." "It's okay, Naruto. After all, it will also help you deal with summoning him more easily," said the fox with a knowing smile. "Kuchio's no jutsu summoning jutsu," Orochimaru shouted as chakra swirled around him. Instantly, a huge snake appeared from a screen of smoke and launched its tail at the blonde, who received him with her Kyuubi mantle, protecting him. He was thrown against the branch of a tree, and even though he had the cloak that protected him, it hurt. Orochimaru looked at him with sadistic amusement and said to the snake maliciously, "Kukukuku. Go ahead and do it." Sayuri saw this in horror and was about to jump in to save the boy she liked, when the blonde threw a powerful punch at the snake just as it was in front of him. "Eat it, shit!" Naruto shouted with anger. Orochimaru watched as his summon disappeared in a screen of smoke, and as he looked at the blonde, he could see with open eyes how he was covered in a blanket of crimson chakra and his eyes had turned red with a slit in the pupil. "This guy. No way," he thought in pure amazement. Sayuri and Sakura watched as Naruto fell to the ground quickly, and Sakura thought in amazement, "He managed to defeat that snake with a single blow. And what is that crimson chakra cloak? The chakra is only blue. Wait, Naruto is Kurama-san's container. So that must be the power of the fox." Sayuri had a similar line of thought and looked at Naruto in admiration as she thought, "Incredible, Naruto surprises me more and more. He has managed to deal with a summon even while in his idiot costume. And that crimson cloak, it looks like he's using Kurama's power. He explained to us that the fox became his friend during his childhood and that it has helped him train. I guess with this, he can fight this woman without having to take off her disguise." Then, Naruto launched himself like lightning at Orochimaru, and he sent a strange smoke from his mouth at the blonde that sent him back to the ground. His eyes of her, there's no doubt. "Kukukaku, this is getting fun," he thought maliciously. He launched himself at Sayuri at high speed while shouting with excitement. Sasuke-kun, now it's your turn, what will you do? Sayuri could see how he approached her with some terror, while Sakura tried to think of some way to help her friend, when they saw how the blonde stood in front of the two and received Orochimaru's kunai in her chest. Naruto, Sakura screamed in horror. Sayuri looked at Naruto's back of her with tears, while Orochimaru looked at the blonde with an amused smile and asked with interest. Why have you protected them? Don't you hate him for being better than you? The blonde just looked at him with a challenging smile, something that made Orochimaru remember that time when a certain white-haired man confronted him before leaving the village, and he heard how Naruto said cleverly, "Then you don't know me well, creeping snake." Orochimaru smiled evilly at that answer and said in a sadistic voice, "Kukukuku, you've become more interesting, Naruto-kun." Meanwhile, in the vicinity of the Forest of Death, a group of shinobi were inspecting some corpses near the forest grounds, and one of them said, 1, 2, 3. 3 corpses. It's some kind of ninjutsu, right? One of his classmates asked curiously. This is horrible, said the one who was inspecting the corpses with an expression of horror. His 2 companions looked at him carefully, curious about what was happening, and listened to him say with an obvious tremor in his body, "This is a problem. Shit, called the exam supervisor, Anko-san." "Of course," said the first, disappearing. On the other hand, at the gates of the forest, a certain purple-haired girl was eating some dangos with juice, but she looked at the forest with an anguished expression while saying, "Not even dango calms me down from this worry. When I finish eating, I will go to the tower to see if Foxy-kun has arrived yet. After all, in this program, the fastest one arrives in about 24 hours. He threw his empty stick at a tree, which had a drawing of the Uzumaki symbol on the throne with dango sticks, and said with some emotion, "Swirl mark completed." But at that moment, one of the shinobi who were in the vicinity of the forest appeared and said with extreme seriousness, "There is a big problem, Anko-san." "What is it?" Anko asked him with clear annoyance at his words. "Bodies, 3 of them," said the shinobi, very upset. Anko jumped up from her seat and asked with horror-filled eyes, "Bodies? What are you talking about? And they seem strange." "Please eat," the shinobi said, even more upset. Anko sweated a lot and followed the shinobi while thinking, "Please, no, let it not be his body." They both arrived at the place where the other 2 shinobis were with the bodies, and she went to see the bodies while one of the shinobis told her. After examining their papers and personal items, it seems that they are ninjas from the Hidden Grass Village, who had entered this exam. "But, how can you see, they don't have faces? They are white, as if they had melted." Anko looked at the bodies with a mixture of relief and concern as she thought, "Thank Kami he's not Foxy-kun. But this? There is no doubt. This jutsu is from Foxy-kun was right, he's in this exam." He looked at the shinobi and shouted, "Show me the photos of the 3 of you." "Of course," said one, handing him the photos. She looked at the photos carefully, noticing in one the face of a woman she recognized immediately. He has stolen his face from him. All this time he was... Foxy-kun is in danger, she thought with a white face. This is bad, go report this to the hokage, send some Anbu captains to the Forest of Death. I'll go there now, she shouted as she entered the forest with a look of death. Back with Naruto. Orochimaru looked at the blonde with a malicious smile, while he looked at him with eyes full of fury, and out of nowhere, her tongue moved quickly to envelop the blonde completely. "What is this? Damn! Let go of me!" Naruto shouted in his idiotic boy role. Orochimaru just smiled evilly and made a sign with his hands as he said, "Kukukuku, so the Kyuubi brat is still alive. When your emotions are greater, the power of the Kyuubi becomes interesting." He lifted Naruto's shirt to reveal a seal on his stomach, and the snake Sannin smiled evilly as he said, "Oh my! The signal is visible." He extended his fingers into a claw and then slammed all 5 fingers into the blonde's stomach while shouting, "Seal of the 5 elements." Inside the blonde, Kurama saw this with fury and shouted, Damn, I should have known that Snake knew about that technique. Now I won't be able to help the boy until they remove the seal. Naruto gritted his teeth at having made such a serious mistake, and his eyes closed as he fell asleep in Orochimaru's hands. Naruto, Sayuri and Sakura shouted, scared. 12 years with the seal. Naruto-kun and the Kyuubi's chakra have begun to merge. But right now it's in my way, Orochimaru thought as he took the scroll from her blonde suit. He then threw Naruto's body towards a tree, and upon seeing this, Sakura moved quickly to grab them in the air and hide with him. Kukukuku, it seems that the girl is not as useless as I thought. She has taken Naruto-kun and gone to a safe place. Now, where were we, Sasuke-kun? Orochimaru said with amusement when he saw this. Sayuri was motionless in her place, trembling with anger for not having been of help to the blonde, and the image of her older brother appeared in her mind as she said, "Power is useless if it is not used to protect those precious to you. What's the point of having the Sharingan if you can't protect the ones you love? Always remember this, Sayuri. Power will always defeat your enemies if you use it to protect what you love so much." At that moment, she opened her eyes in fury, and Orochimaru watched wide-eyed as the Sharingan glowed with power, while 3 tomos spun in each eye. "I will protect him this time. It's my turn to fight for him," the Uchiha thought with determination. Orochimaru smiled evilly when he saw her look full of fury and thought, "Kukukuku, the blood of the clan is starting to boil. I think I will use my time to see their abilities." Sayuri just took out several shurikens from her storage and prepared her stance before the Sannin while thinking determinedly. "I will fight to protect the one I love, Ni-san. I won't be someone weak if he is in danger. I will prove that I will be the Uchiha who rises as the greatest and as one of the wives of the future Hokage of Konoha." Chapter 15, Survive. Sayuri looked at the disguised Orochimaru with her Sharingan glowing with fury and lunged at him while thinking, "If I don't risk my life here, then how can I protect the person I love?" He threw several shurikens at the Sannin, which he only blocked with a malicious smile, and moved nimbly through the trees to grab one a little far from Orochimaru, while staring at him with her Sharingan. "I can see," she thought seriously. He took out a Fuma shuriken to throw it at the Sannin, who jumped to evade it, and the Uchiha took out a kunai with a wire tied to it to throw it at him. Orochimaru just dodged it even with that amused smile and thought, "Not bad at all. He's reading my moves and going for a critical hit. Then he can see me." But he noticed how he smoked shuriken and the kunai had a wire that Sayuri held with her hands and mouth, realizing her Uchiha's plan. "A wire? That's the triple-bladed Fuma shuriken of the Sharingan," he said, somewhat surprised. Sakura was watching everything from a tree while protecting a sleeping Naruto and thought with a smile, "Good, he managed to surprise that woman. Now you have to hit him, and then escape." Sayuri moved the wire in her mouth so that the Fuma shuriken moved towards Orochimaru's face, but she watched as he caught it with his teeth while giving her an evil smile. "Kukukuku. Not bad," he said with amusement. "To read all the places, I can run and attack from where he can't see me," the Sannin thought maliciously. But he opened his eyes when he saw how the Uchiha made several hand seals with a malicious smile while holding the wire from her mouth, and when she stopped at the last seal, she recognized the technique with surprise. "The Dragon's Judgment Fire Elemental, Fire Dragon Judgment." A column of fire came out of Sayuri's mouth and headed through the wire towards Orochimaru's face, who was so stunned by the Uchiha's action that he didn't have time to do anything. The fire hit him all over the face, causing him to burn completely, but Sayuri and Sakura noticed that he was not screaming at all and listened in horror to his voice as he said with amusement, "To be able to use the Sharingan so well at your age, that means that you really are the man who carries the blood of the Uchiha." They both watched in horror as the fire dissipated and how the woman's face was falling away as if it were a mask, revealing a yellow eye with very pale skin underneath. Sayuri stood still as she trembled at what she was seeing, and Orochimaru said maliciously, "I had fun testing your powers. So they are brothers. The power of your eyes surpasses Itachi's." These words caused Sayuri to react not out of hatred, but out of concern for her older brother, and she yelled at the Sannin with fury, "Who the hell are you? Orochimaru only took out the scroll he had and burned it in front of the two kunoichis while saying, "My name is Orochimaru. If you want to see me again, then she survives and passes the exam." The scroll. Wait, did Orochimaru say? He is one of the three legendary Sannin, the one who defected from Konoha and is said to be the greatest danger to the village. Sakura thought in frustration. Of course, defeating my sound trio along the way, Orochimaru continued saying maliciously. What the hell are you talking about? We don't want to see your face again, Sayuri shouted with fury. Kukukuku. It's the custom, Orochimaru said in a sadistic voice. He created a hand seal and his neck elongated until he reached Sayuri's neck to bite it with his teeth. Damn, Sayuri screamed when she was bitten. She fainted instantly after being bitten and began to fall to the ground, until Sakura caught her in time. Orochimaru looked at Team 7 with a crooked smile and said, Kukukuku, Sasuke-kun will come from my power. I hope you like my gift. See you another time, young genin. For being simple brats, they turned out to be very interesting. Once he said those words, he submerged himself into the earth to disappear from the place as if he had never been there. When she left, Sakura looked at Sayuri's condition to see what was wrong, and she could see a black mark with 3 tomes in a circle on her neck. What is this brand? What did she do to Sayuri? She asked herself, upset. It's the mark of the curse. A mark that Orochimaru gives to certain people to grant them great power, but also to mark the most promising subjects to be their recipients, said Naruto's voice behind her. Sakura turned to see an awake Naruto as he walked towards her somewhat slowly and shouted with joy. Naruto, are you okay? Something like that. That signal the Hibi team put on me caused me some damage. I can't communicate with Kurama and I can't use his power either. Also, I'm a little weak to fight in my prime, but I can still fight a chunin. Now, the important thing is Sayuri. We must take her to a safe place so that she can take care of that mark before she gives us problems, Naruto explained, checking the status of both of her. Sakura nodded, and in that way, they both left that area to look for a safe place to help Sayuri. A few hours later, Naruto and Sakura were in a hiding place, under a tree, while the blonde checked on the Uchiha. The brand is just starting to work on Sayuri's body, which means that Hibi team's soul has not yet managed to influence her body. I have to do this soon so she has a chance, Naruto said as he created a circle on the ground. What are you going to do, Naruto? Sakura asked curiously. Naruto finished creating the circle and then took off Sayuri's clothes and Sasuke's costume to look for the seal of the same costume while saying, I am going to create a seal that restricts Orochimaru's soul from the mark and eliminates the chains of its bad influence. With this seal, Sayuri will be able to take advantage of the brand's advantages without fear of it becoming evil. But for that, I have to take off her costume for a moment, since she must be in her real body. Oh really? Isn't it to see her naked? Sakura asked him with a frown. Naruto stopped for a moment, and said to the pink-haired girl in a serious tone. Let me tell you something, we Uzumakis are somewhat perverted, but only with the people we really love. We reserve our perversion for those who manage to reach our hearts, and even then, we are decent enough not to take advantage of a situation like this. So don't be wrong with me. Sorry. It's good to know that you're a gentleman, Sakura said with some guilt. Naruto placed his fingers on the seal on the costume and put in some chakra to deactivate it. When the Uchiha's beautiful appearance appeared before her eyes, the blonde placed her in a sitting position to begin the seal ritual. He performed several hand seals and then placed both hands on her Uchiha's mark as he said, Fuinjutsu Uzumaki, Prison of Curse. Instantly, several black lines emerged from the circle that headed towards the Uchiha and ran across her body until they covered her curse mark. In the end, there was a whirlpool around the 3 volumes and Sakura could see how the Uchiha relaxed at the end of her suffering. Is that there? Sakura asked, worried about her friend. That's how it is. Now, she should wake up the next day and she will no longer feel any suffering from the mark, said the blonde while he dressed the Uchiha carefully. Sakura looked outside with concern and asked, What do we do now, Naruto? Naruto walked towards the entrance of the hideout and said seriously, We will stay here until Sayuri wakes up. Following our path while she is asleep can be dangerous. However, I will go search for equipment in the forest to get the scroll we need. Meanwhile, your Sakura, you will remain here taking care of Sayuri. Guard this hiding place so that they are not attacked. Are you okay with this? She agreed to his words, and thus, Naruto left the hideout to look for some equipment with the scroll that they needed, while the pink-haired woman remained in the hideout taking care of the Uchiha. However, a certain sound crew was watching them from outside, and a malicious smile formed on their faces. Somewhat far from there, Enko was jumping through the trees with a very serious look on her face as she thought in frustration. It's almost dark. I have to find it quickly. If it becomes completely dark, I would be at a disadvantage. But why is he in all this time? What does he want to do? I just hope Foxy-kun is fine. Without any doubt, if he has come to the village, we will solve it. He is a dangerous S-class assassin in the bingo book. I must stop it, to protect Foxy-kun, even if I have to use my life. And if that is not possible, I have to make time until the Umbu arrive. I learned everything from him. I was one of his apprentices. And therefore, that's my job, right, Orochimaru? She said as she stopped at a tree with a dark expression. Behind her, a silhouette emerged from the branches like a zombie and said with amusement, That's impossible. Enko remained calm in her place, but after a while, she launched several senbons in the direction of the Sannin, who only launched his disgusting tongue at her to capture her. But the purple-haired girl only took several snakes out of her raincoat and wrapped them around her tongue while she screamed. Now you won't escape, you have fallen into my trap. Orochimaru watched with wide eyes as several black lines emerged from Enko's snake fangs to cover her tongue completely. Fuinjutsu on his snakes? I thought in disbelief. Fuinjutsu Uzumaki, corrosive prison, Enko shouted while making a sign with her hand. Instantly, Orochimaru felt her tongue began to rot as if it were dead, and Enko looked at him with cold eyes, watching as the Orochimaru before him melted into mud, realizing the truth. A mud clone? She said with frustration. Cuckoo, that's right, dear, said a voice in a tree near her. He turned to see the Sannin leaning against the tree as he removed the remains from her face and said with amusement, How curious that you know the Fuinjutsu Uzumaki, and that you can use it with your snakes. That can only mean that you were trained by an Uzumaki. Cuckoo, interesting. How about you tell me everything about that, my dear Enko? He made a sign with one hand, but watched with open eyes how the purple-haired girl was calm in her place while she had a malicious smile on her face. Ace? How is it possible that the mark doesn't work? Orochimaru asked furiously. Enko just took out a kunai with a tag tied to it and said, I don't feel like telling you. Now she disappears. He threw the kunai towards the Sannin, who just calmly dodged it and smiled, knowing that a simple explosive tag wouldn't be a problem for him. But he saw how Enko smiled sadistically, and instantly, the tag exploded to release a whirlwind of water, lightning, wind, earth, and fire. You trusted yourself, teacher? That label is an invention of my new partner. A special storage seal that can be used as an explosive tag on kunai. When released, whatever has been saved attacks its target mercilessly. He gave me this with the 5 elements fused into a powerful merciless whirlwind. I called it 5-element explosive tag. I hope you like it, said the purple-haired girl with a satisfactory tone. He could hear Orochimaru screaming in agony within the whirlpool and felt pleasure hearing her screams. After a minute, the whirlwind dispersed to reveal an almost unrecognizable Orochimaru, with one arm and leg destroyed and his body covered in burns, cuts, and bruises. Enko couldn't help but feel enormous satisfaction seeing him in this state, but she opened her eyes when she saw how he opened his mouth in such a gritty way so that another totally unharmed Orochimaru could emerge from the injured one. Curse! This is bad, Enko said furiously. Orochimaru looked at her with a cold gaze and said with unusual seriousness, A storage seal with which you can cause as much damage as with an S-class ninjutsu. I must admit that it surprised me for your partner to have created something so powerful. Now I'm interested in knowing who he is. Anko showed a terrified look and Orochimaru smiled evilly as he said, "Oh, is he your boyfriend? So, I guess I should have a friendly chat with him like your old teacher, don't you think?" This provoked the purple-haired girl's fury, and she threw herself at the Sannin while shouting angrily, "Stay away from him, damned snake." But Orochimaru just dove into the branch below him and said with utter amusement, "Don't get like that, dear. I only plan to get to know your boyfriend as the father I was to you. Anyway, he is not my real goal now. I have given him my mark and now, my plans are on track. He will be my perfect vessel. After all, he is an Uchiha. I asked you not to stop the exam early. 3 of my subordinates are taking part in this exam and the fun is about to begin for the Uchiha team. If you try to put an end to my fun, it will be the end of Konoha." With that, he disappeared from the place while leaving Anko totally frustrated by what had happened. In an area far from there, Niji's team was resting from their search through the forest. The sun will set in less than an hour. We must spend the day collecting food and water. Most teams will be resting, so we will attack according to plan. We will split up and use 30 minutes to explore the area. But whether they find a team or not, we will return in 30 minutes. Do you understand? Niji said seriously. Understood, Tenten said with a smile. Okay, Lee said enthusiastically. Well, let's go, Niji said with a sly smile. Thus, the 3 scattered through the forest in search of their objective, leaving a kunai on the ground to mark their meeting place. The next day, Sakura was taking care of Sayuri while waiting for Naruto to return, but she heard a sound near her, and when she looked, she could see a squirrel approaching the hiding place. A squirrel? Sakura thought with her eyes rolling. But I noticed something about her and rushed to catch her quickly. She took out a paper at the speed of light and threw it away. The paper exploded in the air, and she said coldly, "An explosive tag. This is how with Haku's rabbit. They're here." Suddenly, a voice was heard in the area that said with amusement, "Hee, you are very good at surveillance." I look outside the hideout to see the sound team watching them with cold eyes. "Wake up, Sasuke-kun. We want to fight him," said the guy with the bandages maliciously. Sakura just smiled mockingly and said, "And some of these Orochimaru's lackeys say that they were only sent to be guinea pigs in his experiment. Per people, you have come as corpses for a guy who sees you as nothing more than simple garbage that he can throw to the slaughterhouse so that you can die for him." This made the 2 guys' teeth grind while the girl sweated at the pink-haired girl's words, and the one with the helmet said with an evil smile, "I'm already angry. Damn, I'll kill you and then I'll kill everyone on your team for fun." He was going to attack the pink-haired girl, but the one with the bandages shouted at him, "Wait, Zaku." "Hey, why?" Zaku shouted furiously. The one with the bandages inspected the ground carefully and said, "You are not very good. There are openings here and the color of the earth is very different. Grass doesn't grow here." Sakura looked at him with sweat while the one with the bandages looked at her with mocking eyes and said, "A stupid trap. It is useless unless one realizes it." "Pfft, stupid," Zaku said maliciously. "So you prevented the squirrel from falling into the trap. Well, the girl is of no use to us, only Sasuke-kun. Let's kill her," said the one with the bandages with a murderous look. They lunged at her to finish them off, but Sakura smiled evilly as she touched a curious sign on her trunk. Instantly, a huge tree trunk appeared towards the sound team, and the one with the bandages opened his eyes at this. "Another trap?" I have shouted. The log came towards them quickly, and the bandages guy put his arm of him in front of him and made a hand seal to send a sound wave from the device on his arm of him to destroy the log into splinters. "This brat is a nuisance. I don't know what he did against us, but a weakling like you shouldn't mess with people like us," I have shouted with fury. The 3 of them launched themselves against the pink-haired girl, but were sent flying by a green blur that shouted, "Hello everyone." The sound trio was sent flying towards the trees, crashing into them heavily, and Sakura said in surprise, "Lee-kun." Before her, Rock Lee was watching over the sound trio as he said excitedly, "Oh yeah, I've arrived on time now. I'm going to demonstrate my power of youth." The guy with the bandages stood up in pain from the crater in the tree to glare at Lee as he said, "And who are you?" Lee just smiled excitedly and said, "I am the beautiful green beast of Konoha." Rock Lee. Chapter 16, Events in the Forest. The sound crew frowned at Lee and Sakura said, "It's good that they came to support us." "Don't worry, Sakura-chan, I will always appear to protect you with my life," Lee said with a big smile. Sakura smiled nervously at her words and stood next to him as she said, "I appreciate that you want to protect me, but I'm going to fight too. I will show how strong I have become." Lee smiled at him with a radiant smile and said, "Of course, show how your hard work will always shine in your flames of youth." The one with the bandages laughed mockingly and said to Zaku, "Zaku, you can go get the Uchiha. Kin will take care of the girl and I'll take care of that green fool." He threw the scroll they were carrying at Zaku and launched himself at Rock Lee to eliminate him. This brow has very advanced hand-to-hand combat. This can be fun, he thought maliciously. But Sakura prepared her fist with great power and threw it to the ground while shouting, "Shinero." The blow destroyed much of the terrain into pieces, causing the sound team to have to jump into the trees to avoid the large earthquake. "You're amazing, Sakura-chan," Lee shouted with a big bright smile. The one with the bandages only narrowed his eyes at the pink-haired girl's powerful fist and jumped from the tree to head towards Lee. But the brow only picked up a huge piece of stone from the destruction Sakura made, which he kicked to throw it towards her enemy. The one with the bandages saw this with open eyes and put his arm in front of him to use the sound to destroy the stone. When it was destroyed, he looked at Lee, who was smiling hugely. "There is some trick in your attacks, right? I'm not just going to avoid them. Because I've seen your attacks before," he said seriously. The three on the sound team squinted at him and became alert for the Sajudo's next movements. "It's strong. Now I understand why Naruto told us that he was one of those who had the best chance of passing this exam," Sakura thought, looking at Lee with a smile. Lee just looked at the sound team with a calculating look and thought seriously. "But 3 against 2? We are a little at a disadvantage. Although Sakura-chan has shown great strength, they may have some less than youthful tricks. I'll have to take a chance. I will crush each one with all my power." Close to them, the Ino Shikacho team was exploring the forest in search of some equipment to get the scroll they needed, when Ino shouted angrily, "Ah, we didn't find any weak team. I already told you. The only weak teams are us. We wouldn't even have a chance against Naruto's team," Shikamaru said with a lazy look. "You're right about that, Shika. We would have a great opportunity against Sakura and the weak Naruto, but we would never be able to against the super genius Sasuke-kun," Ino said with all the conviction in the world. Shikamaru looked at her with sweat as he thought, "She's worrying me. It's unfortunate that she didn't notice Sakura's enormous change in her. I understand that you still think that Naruto is weak since he is still in his idiot costume, but Sakura has revealed herself with a big change that can be clearly seen. And not only in appearance, but also in strength and ninja conviction. I have no doubt that she was trained by Naruto's grandfather. If so, then we will be in a lot of trouble if we face the entire Naruto team. I just do and say anything because I so want to see Ino's face when Naruto reveals his true self. That would be really fun." "Bah, I don't know anything about that. A genius can quickly crumble in the face of the real world," he said calmly. But he saw how Ino looked at him with a look full of fury and said with a sigh, "All right. I'm sorry I said that. This sucks. If you say anything bad about Sasuke, he'll glare at you. I just hope Naruto reveals himself in this test because I want to see his expression," Shikamaru thought with some annoyance. "There is no way Sasuke-kun will lose, although it's a different story if we think about Sakura," Ino said arrogantly. "Oh, Sasuke has been defeated," Choji said, looking at a certain area. Ino glared at him and Choji continued saying, this time impressed, "And Sakura is fighting impressively there." Ino directed her gaze to where he was pointing and opened her eyes enormously at what she saw. In another area, Niji and Tenten were at the meeting point and were a little upset that Lee didn't show up. "Lee is running late," Tenten said, somewhat annoyed. Niji remained silent for a few moments, and then said seriously. It's strange. Normally it is punctual. Could it be that he ran into the enemy? No way. Tenten said, somewhat worried. Well, it's unlikely. Let's find Lee. I feel like by doing so, I'll run into him, Niji said with an evil smile. Tenten looked at him worried by those words, but she put on a serious face and said forcefully. And thus they both disappeared from there to look for their partner. Meanwhile, in a remote area of the forest, Naruto was sitting on the root of a tree as he looked at three aimed genin with a cold gaze. It was a good idea to confront the three of us with clones to try to confuse me. However, his mistake was using water clones to achieve it since they used it with the wrong person, he said as he looked at them with ocean blue eyes. Around him, several orbs of water hovered in the air, and the three genin looked at the blonde in frustration. I can use the water around, whether natural or chakra. It is one of the wonders of my Uzurigan. Using elemental clones is a big mistake when you face me, Naruto said as he stood up. He looked at the heaven scroll in his hands and said with a smile. I thank you. Now we have the scroll we need and we can continue the exam. I advise you to leave this forest if you want to return to your village. I have trained in this forest with Hibiheim, and I can attest to how dangerous it can be even for a chunin. See you? But suddenly he felt something with his Kagura eye, a chakra somewhat similar to his and his grandfather's. He looked in the direction she felt him and rushed like lightning towards where he was. She arrived at her destination and could see a certain redhead being abused by her teammates. Damn whore, if you are not willing to support us how we want, then die in this forest, one of them shouted with fury. That's how it is. You are just a tool that is used and thrown away when it is no longer useful, the other shouted, kicking her. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, and the next thing the two unhappy people saw were two flashing blues, and then they felt the greatest pain they had ever felt in their lives. The girl heard bodies fall to the ground and opened her eyes in fear to find a handsome blonde looking at her with a smile. Are you okay? He asked, extending his hand. She looked at him with her eyes wide open as her special ability made her see in him such a bright and peaceful chakra that attracted her. I'm fine, she said, stuttering. Naruto helped her up and said seriously. It's good to see that you're okay. One question, are you an Uzumaki? The girl looked at him with open eyes and walked away a little while saying, Why do you ask? Preliminaries? Naruto looked at her with a smile and introduced himself to her kindly. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. I am the grandson of Orochimaru Uzumaki, the Crimson Hurricane, and the son of Kushina Uzumaki, the Blood Habanero. The girl looked at him with wide open eyes and threw herself into his arms while saying happily, There are still Uzumakis, I still have a family, I'm happy to meet you, my name is Karen Uzumaki, great pleasure. Naruto smiled at her happiness, but he noticed something on her girl's neck and moved her clothes aside to get a better look. Wait. Don't look, Karen said with fear. But the blonde could see bite marks on her neck and the rest of her body, which provoked her fury. Who did this to you? I have shouted with fury. Karen looked at him with wide eyes, amazed that he was angry at being hurt, and said with some tears, I have a rare ability with which I can heal people with my chakra. However, I need to be bitten somewhere on my body for it to work, and that's why I have those marks. Naruto was shaking with anger at what he had heard and shouted angrily, I'm going to kill them. My grandfather told me about such an ability, and he told me that it was enough to just place your lips on the person's body. What they have been doing is evil. I have decided you will go to Yuzu with my grandfather so that you can be in your true home. Karen looked at him with wide eyes and said hopefully, Really? Does Yuzu still exist? Can I be in a home with my clan? Naruto took out a paper from his kimono and placed it on the ground so that the seal on it spread out before them as he said, Of course I will take you to my grandfather Orochimaru so that he can welcome you into the new Yuzu. You are an Uzumaki, and as such, you will be with your family. You will go with him in this transportation seal and he will explain everything to you. He took her to the center of the seal and proceeded to make the seals for transportation, when Karen asked him hopefully, I'll see you later? Naruto just smiled at him and said, "Of course, after all, I am the prince of the Uzumakis, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze also. I can't stop seeing a beautiful Uzumaki like you." "Wait. What did you say to E?" Karen shouted as she was transported by the signal towards Yuzu. Naruto picked up the sign after that and directed his gaze towards where Sakura was as he said, "I feel like Sakura is fighting another team, and the brow is with her. I guess I should go see how the Cherry Blossom Princess defeats them." He passed between Karen's two companions of hers, who were still unconscious due to the blonde's attack of fury, and kicked them as he passed while saying with contempt, "Human waste. In use." Erasure was in his office while checking what he needed for his visit to Konoha for the chunin exams, when the transportation signal in his office glowed brightly. She saw how a red-haired girl appeared in it, looking everywhere in fear until she saw him in amazement. "An Uzumaki? How did you get here?" Erasure asked, approaching her. Karen looked at him with wide eyes, sensing that this nervous man was Naruto's grandfather, and said, "I'm Karen Uzumaki. I arrived here after Naruto-kun found me in the second test of the chunin exams, and he saved me." Erasure widened his eyes at this information, but smiled proudly as he said, "I guess my grandson is proving his worth in those exams. It's good to hear that he has made it to the second test despite wearing his costume. Well, I am Erasure Uzumaki, Naruto's grandfather, and I am the Uzumakis of the new Uzu. Welcome home, Karen." Karen smiled with joy at finally being in her true home and followed Erasure through the building as he told her everything about the new Uzu and about her grandson Naruto. Back in the Forest of Death, with Sakura and Lee. The sound crew was watching as Lee was removing the bandages from his arms, and he was thinking with extreme seriousness. "Guy-sensei, I am going to use that technique without reservation." Sakura looked at him with wide eyes, and the one with the bandages opened his eyes wide as he said, "Why right now? It's time to protect a special person," thought Lee with all the determination in the world. He jumped quickly, causing astonishment in everyone who saw what was happening, and appeared before him from the bandages with a cold look. The one with the bandages was going to attack with his arm, but the one with the eyebrows disappeared from his sight, making him surprised. "It's gone," he said without being able to believe it. But he felt how he received a kick on the chin from the brow that sent him flying upwards, and he could hear his voice behind him saying, "I have not finished." He felt the boy's bandages begin to completely wrap around him until he was tied up and realized that the brow was beginning to descend to the ground as he spun with him. "He can't protect himself. He's in trouble," Zaku shouted when he saw what was happening. "Take this, lotus flower," Lee shouted as he rotated with the force of gravity to the ground. Both fell like a torpedo to the ground, causing a huge explosion that shook the entire place. Lee walked away to see his result, and saw how the one with the bandages was buried upside down in the ground. "However, I have realized something and thought seriously. This feeling." Sakura, who had watched everything carefully, could see Zaku near the one with the bandages and said, "I have saved him." Zaku smiled arrogantly and said maliciously, "Phew. It seems I did it on time." Sakura and Lee watched as the one with the bandages stood up from the hole and looked unharmed. "No way," Lee shouted in disbelief. "It was a terrible technique. It has hurt me even though the earth is spongy." "Now it's my turn," said the one with the bandages while he recovered and prepared his arm for him. "Damn. Shit, my body still," Lee thought as he felt his body hurt like hell. But he saw how the one with the bandages lunged at him and attacked him with his metal arm, so he nimbly dodged it. However, he felt how everything around him was distorted, and he could hear the voice of the one with the bandages as he said maliciously, "If your movements are based on speed, then ours is based on the speed of sound. I will show you a wall that you will not be able to overcome." Lee looked at him with a frustrated face, and Sakura thought with a grimace, "This is bad. I have to help Lee-kun until Naruto arrives or Sayuri wakes up." Chapter 17, End of the Second Test. Lee was kneeling on the ground while vomiting due to the bandages guy's attack, and Sakura watched this in horror. "Lee-kun," she shouted, trying to go towards him. Then, Lee felt something in his right ear and realized it was blood. My right ear, he thought, worried. The one with the bandages looked at him with malicious eyes and showed his arm while saying, There is a little trick. You won't be able to dodge my attacks. Lee looked at him with frustration while Sakura checked him to see what had been done to him, and when he saw his ear, he opened his eyes as he said. He hurt his hearing from him. It's not very serious to leave him deaf, but she has left him incapacitated for a while. How did they do it? The one with the bandages gave an evil eye smile and said with amusement, It's sound. Even if you dodge the blow, the sound will attack you. Sakura looked at him with wide eyes and said, A vibrational frequency. Exactly. Listening to the sound means that the eardrum collects the vibrations of the air, and the human eardrum ruptures if the sound exceeds 150 mHz. And since it also affects the semicircular canals, you lose your sense of balance. Your friend won't be able to move his body as he wants for a while. The one with the bandages explained maliciously. They cannot reach us with physical techniques. You guys have done well so far. The eyebrows forced me to use my jutsu and, of course, it failed. I can freely control sound waves and air pressure. I have the power to even destroy a rock or introduce underground air to make it like a mattress, Sakura said with an evil smile. Sakura gritted her teeth at this, and Lee grew frustrated as he thought about her sensei and the teachings he gave him. Damn, he thought furiously. Then, the one with the bandages launched himself at Sakura to attack her while shouting, Okay. Now you. The pink-haired woman only remained calm in the face of the enemy that was approaching her, and slammed her fist against the ground to raise a stone wall between her enemy and them. A stone wall? That's useless against my power of sound, shouted the one with the bandages mockingly. He hit the wall with his arm to destroy it with the sound, but opened his eyes when he noticed that it was being destroyed. How is it? He shouted without understanding anything. Your mistake was telling me how your trick worked. Thanks to that, I was able to make this stone wall and have strengthened it with chakra to make it resistant to your power. With this, you won't be able to reach us, said Sakura's voice on the other side of the wall. Everyone on the sound team clicked their tongues and Zaka placed his hands on the ground as he said, In that case, I just have to use my sound to turn that wall into something weak and you will be finished. However, he felt something behind him, and as he looked, he could see a leg that kicked him with such force that he sent him flying, destroying several trees along the way. Unfortunately, you also told me how your technique works, and that's why I created a clone to take care of you. Now there are only 2 of you left to deal with, Sakura said as she looked at the remaining 2 with a cold expression. The one with the bandages looked at her with his eyes open, and the girl just smiled maliciously as she said, Fufufu, it seems that the girl is a real ninja. Despite having such pretty hair, she has managed to knock Zaku out. I guess I have to take care of her if we want to continue with Orochimaru-sama's plan. Sakura looked at her with piercing eyes and said neutrally, I suggest you not underestimate me. I can take care of my beauty, but I also take care of my ninja skills. After all, famous kunoichis have managed to be powerful and beautiful at the same time. I have learned that you can take care of your beauty if you take the same care in your ninja skills. Beauty and power can turn kunoichi into a truly famous shinobi. The girl gritted her teeth at this and took out some senbons while saying maliciously, I'm going to enjoy destroying your pretty face, you bucking conceited. Nearby, the Ino Shikacho team was watching everything from the bushes, and Choji said nervously, Shouldn't I run away? You can see that they are strong. It seems that Sasuke is in bad condition. Lee has been beaten and Sakura is fighting the 3 alone. Well, I must admit that she is doing very well and that she has improved quite a bit. She has managed to knock out one of them in a magnificent way, and now she is fighting the other 2 like a true kunoichi. What do you think, Ino? Shikamaru whispered as he analyzed what he saw. He looked at Ino to see her with her eyes wide open and saying shakily, What's happening, Sakura? Shikamaru sighed, knowing that Sakura's improvement must be the work of Naruto and his clan. I have deduced that on that mission they had outside the village, Something happened to make the blonde tell them the truth and then take them to Yuzu. So, after a sincere apology from the pinkette to Naruto, the blonde's grandfather trained her to improve. If that was true, then they had to be careful of her, because if Naruto and Hinata's great abilities were proof of the results of Erasure-san's training, then it was more than clear that Sakura was at a low chunin level right now. Ino, on the other hand, was speechless. She had seen with her own eyes how the pink-haired girl had built a stone wall with her own hands and how it had become strong enough to withstand the blows of the enemy team. She then sees how a clone of her friend had kicked a genin clearly stronger than her and sent him flying, destroying several trees in the process. And finally, she listens to how her rival, the one who believed that she would never become a truly strong kunoichi, looked at the sound girl with such a cold look and said some words to her that even impressed her. She remembered that day when they had both left their friendship because of their love for Sasuke, and how they had declared their rivalry for the boy. Then I remembered Sakura's words from her before the first exam. I realized that I was chasing someone who is out of my reach, and I made the decision to focus on my ninja path. Ino watched her former friend with tears welling up in her eyes, remembering those childhood days when they both protected each other from children and how they played together, before everything was destroyed by loving the same boy. At that moment, she thought with pain that she wanted to go back to those days and that they would be friends with her again. Hey Ino. What do we do? Shikamaru whispered seriously. Ino came out of her sad thoughts and said in frustration. I know, but what can we do? We can't get out of hiding if we stand up to them, we will end up dead. Then, they saw how Sakura's clone was heading towards the sound girl and she threw the senbons in their direction. Sakura was able to notice something about them, thanks to the enhanced senses signal, and she sent several shurikens to deflect them away. The girl looked at this in disbelief and Sakura appeared before her to grab her hair and slam her against the ground hard, creating a crater. Interesting. Those senbons have bells to confuse your enemy. I guess it's a type of auditory genjutsu. Too bad for you, my senses have improved enough to realize it in time. Nice hair, even if it's not so well taken care of. And you have a promising talent, it's a shame you use it for someone who doesn't deserve it. Stay here until my partner arrives and my other partner wakes up, Sakura said as she released her on the ground. The one with the bandages saw this in horror, thinking that this girl was a monster, and the pink-haired girl looked at him with the same cold look that she gave her companion. Ino's team was speechless at what they just saw, and at that moment, a certain person came out from the hiding place of the tree while saying, What's going on here? Sakura, where is Naruto? Sakura, the one with the bandages, and the Ino Shikacho team watched as Sayuri came out in her Sasuke costume while looking at everything around her with a cold gaze. Sasuke. Naruto is somewhere else looking for what we need, and this team is attacking us on orders from that person we met before, Sakura said seriously. She had already noticed the presence of Ino's team, something that Sayuri also realized after waking up, and the Uchiha looked at the guy with the bandages with a murderous look as she said, I understand. So, I think we must take care of this threat. I'll give you an option that you're sure not going to waste. Take your team and leave. You better continue your way to the tower if you want to get there for the next test. The bandages boy only acknowledged, but took out a roll of his clothing as he said, I am grateful to you, and as a thank you, I leave you the roll we have. We'll find the ones we need along the way, but I feel like I have to give you ours as payment for letting us go. Goodbye. And with that, he took his fallen companions and disappeared from the place. Sayuri just took the scroll and calmly put it in her clothes, but both kunoichis heard Naruto's scream that said, What happened? Where is the danger? They both looked at him to see him in his idiot costume and smiled as they said, You're late, Naruto. The blonde just looked at the destroyed place and in her mind, he analyzed what had happened. I got to see Sakura's battle. I must say I was a little surprised. She has fought an entire team without anyone's help, and even more so when those three were watching everything and did nothing. But she has gotten stronger. I guess my grandfather has raised a great kunoichi that everyone in the shinobi world will know. But at that moment, Shikamaru's team appeared along with Niji's group ready to help them, and Shikamaru said, You guys are really problematic. Ino approached Sakura with a complicated look, and the pink-haired girl only smiled at her as she said, "What's wrong, Ino pig? It seems like if you have seen a ghost." Ino could only frown and look away as she said, "Be quiet, don't think I've given up, I won't let you beat me." Sakura looked at her with a serene gaze, knowing that she had seen her fight and was surely jealous of her improvement. Then Naruto looked around and asked in his idiot mask, "By the way, where are those guys?" "Explaining it to you would be a waste of time when you wear that misunderstood mask and are one step ahead of us," Shikamaru said with annoyance. Naruto could only give her a knowing smile for that comment, and Sayuri looked around while saying, "I see that everyone has come to help us." Then Tenten went to Sakura, who was helping Lee move, and said with a smile, "I will help him." Then he grabbed the man by the neck and began to shake him while shouting, "Cheer up, Lee." Everyone watched this with a drop of sweat and saw how Lee opened his eyes to look at Tenten as he said, "Tenten, why are you here?" "We have come to save you." Lee looked around and asked, "Hey, where are the sound ninjas?" "I think Sasuke-kun forced them to escape," the brunette answered somewhat doubtfully. Lee looked at Naruto's team with a sad look and said, "I see. Why did you break the plan and act on your own? Also, they've beaten you a little," Tenten yelled furiously. "Sakura-san was in trouble and I, like a man," Lee tried to explain with depression. The brunette looked at him with fixed eyes and thought, "If he had been alone, Lee wouldn't have lost." "You're an idiot," she yelled at him furiously. "Haha. I can't argue with you." Naruto saw this with a smile and then pointed at him while shouting, "Oh, it's thick eyebrows. Don't be so mean to Lee-san." Sakura, Ino and Tenten yelled furiously. "At least he has pretty girls to defend him," the blonde thought with amusement. Naruto seems like the type of person who could never be the protagonist of a story, Choji said looking at the blonde. "Don't believe it. We have already told you about him, and you know his true face. You know very well that he has his own story about him," Shikamaru told him lazily. Yes, Choji knew about Naruto's secret, and he loved the Uzumaki clan's ramens. The only one on the team who still didn't know was Ino, and because everyone wanted to see his expression when the blonde revealed his secret about her. Sakura looked at Lee and said with a beautiful smile, "Thanks for your help. See you at the tower." Lee looked at her with a big smile and said with emotion, "Sakura-san, the lotus flower blooms twice. Next time I will be a stronger man. I promise you." Sakura smiled at her words and went to her team to talk to them. Naruto made some hand signs to them, a language that he used with his team in Yuzu and that he had taught the two of them in this to speak without being discovered. "I have what we need. Let's go to the tower," he said in signs. They both agreed, and Sakura looked at the two teams as she said, "Thanks for your help. Now we will go to the tower to finish this exam." "Do you already have the scroll you needed?" Ino asked without believing it. "That's how it is. Now we just have to go to the tower to wait for the third exam." "We'll wait for you there," said the pink-haired girl with a big smile. In that way, the three of Team 7 disappeared from there, leaving the others impressed. "It was surely Sasuke-kun who got the scroll, only he could have done it," Ino said with emotion. Shikamaru looked at her with a drop of sweat and thought, "I doubt it. It must have been Naruto who did it. He arrived from the forest when the sound team left, and I'm sure he got it long before he arrived, so he must have seen Sakura's entire battle. I guess we have this exam lost if he decides to reveal himself in it." On the other hand, Hinata was with her team while they were looking for someone to get a scroll, when they felt something near them. "Stop!" Kiba shouted seriously. The three stopped at a tree and Kiba began to sniff the area. "I smell the aroma of sand and some water," he said. Shino was with his eyes closed and said, "There are around 6. Hinata looked forward and making a sign said, "Byakugan." With his Dijutsu, he managed to see that they were Gaara's team and Kiri's team, motionless in front of the other. She deactivated her Dijutsu and said, "They are the Suna team against an AIM team. I guess there won't be any harm in seeing what happens. Will it be safe? Shino asked seriously. No need to fear. We must obtain a scroll to be able to go to the tower, and if we have a chance with those equipment, we will obtain it. Let's go, Kiba said with a smile. The three went to where Gaara's team was, and upon arriving, they found a complicated discussion between both villages. Give us the scroll, idiot, said the leader of AIM's team. Gaara just remained calm while his teammates watched their opponents, and after a while, the leader of the AIM team gritted his teeth as he said, You are going to die. Enough talking and doing it, old man of the Rain Village, Gaara said with contemplation. Kankuro looked at his brother with a drop of sweat and said, Gaara, it is better to get information first. If we have the same scroll, then there is no need to fight. Fighting without meaning is. It doesn't matter, Gaara said suddenly. The Rain Shinobi looked at him with a frown, and Gaara continued in a dark tone of voice. They looked at me ugly, so they're going to die. Everyone looked at him with wide eyes, and Kankuro thought with anxiety. That's why I don't like going with him. The Rain Shinobi smiled arrogantly and, taking out a straw umbrella, shouted, Bah! Then hurry up and do it, here we go. He threw several straw umbrellas into the sky and, making a hand signal, shouted, Die, Rat Ninpu, raining needles. From the umbrellas, thousands of needles were shot towards Gaara's team as if they were controlled. There is no escape from this jutsu. It's controlled by my chakra to go straight to my target, the AIM Shinobi shouted with an arrogant smile. The needles fell on top of the Suna team, and the AIM team leader saw this with a big smile as he thought, Hey, too easy. But he was shocked to see that in front of him there was a kind of sand dome protecting Suna's team. Gaara looked at the Rain Shinobi with a neutral expression and said, That's there? No way, not a single scratch? Don't they have any scratches? Impossible, shouted the Rain Shinobi with large drops of sweat. He made a hand sign to send more needles towards the redhead, but some sand moved in front of him and protected him from the needles. Rain of needles, huh? Then I will make a rain of blood, he said simply. Everyone saw this with wide eyes, and the Rain Shinobi said in terror, A wall of sand? Yes, a sand base. Total defense. The sand stored in that chakra gourd protects his body. It is a jutsu only available to Gaara. Also, if Gaara can't, for some reasons it's automatically set. Basically, against Gaara, all attacks are useless. Kankuro explained calmly. That is not possible. These needles have the power to pierce 5 millimeters of metal. Damn it, the Rain Shinobi shouted with fury. Kankuro smiled evilly and said, You can't defeat Gaara. The Rain Shinobi gnashed his teeth and charged at them while shouting, Be quiet. But the redhead made a sign with his hands, and Kankuro thought calmly, He is dead. Sabakaku Desert Sarcophagus, Gaara shouted, extending his hand towards the Rain Shinobi. Instantly, a large amount of sand began to cover the shinobi from the rain as if it had a life of its own, and in the end, the poor man was completely covered in sand while saying, I cannot move. Everyone saw this in panic, and Temari said calmly, The sand in the air and on the ground can be controlled by Gaara. This is, said the poor Rain Shinobi as he felt the sand crushing him. Be quiet. I can cover your mouth and kill you, but that would be unfortunate, Gaara said as she took one of the straw umbrellas and extended her hand toward the sand dome. The dome that kept the man imprinted rose into the air before everyone's terrified gaze, and when it was at a good height, Gaara closed his hand emotionlessly as he said, Funeral at the arena. Instantly, the dome slammed shut and a huge amount of blood splattered all over the place before everyone's terrified gaze, while Gaara said calmly, Without suffering, because I killed him so quickly that he couldn't experience it. The blood is mixing with the sand and it gives more desire to kill. The other two Rain Shinobi looked at him in terror, and one of them put the scroll on the ground while saying, We will give you the scroll. Please let us go. But Gaara extended his hands towards them, and the same sand began to cover them as well as their leader, and Temari told them with a beautiful smile, Bye-bye. The redhead closed his hands mercilessly, and the floor became more stained with blood before the frightened gaze of Hinata's team. Kankuro took the scroll from the ground and said with a smile, "How lucky, it's a scroll from heaven. Okay, let's go to the tower." But Gaara looked at him with murderous eyes and said in a dark voice, "Be quiet. I haven't had enough." At that moment, Hinata's team felt a huge killing intent directed towards them, and Hinata thought seriously, "Shit, they realized?" "For Gaara," Kankuro told his brother calmly. Gaara looked at him coldly and said angrily, "Are you afraid, coward?" Kankuro looked at him seriously and said, "Gaara, you may be right. But this is very dangerous for us. We only need one scroll, yes, Moss." But Gaara only extended his hand towards the location of Hinata's team and said in a murderous voice, "Don't tell me what to do, trash." His brothers looked at him seriously, and Kankuro continued telling him angrily, "Give me a break sometimes. Why don't you listen to your older brother, Gaara?" Gaara looked at him neutrally and said with anxiety, "I have never thought that you are my brother. Get in my way, and I will kill you." Kankuro was scared by these words, and Temari said with some fear, "Gaara, stop, okay? Don't say anything like that. Please listen to your sister, okay?" The redhead kept his hand extended towards the bushes where Hinata's team was, and Temari shouted at him very upset, "Gaara." He just closed his hand to take the stopper from his gourd and said neutrally, "Okay." He put the plug in his gourd and began to walk while his brothers followed him with a sigh. Behind the bushes, Hinata's team was breathless at what he had seen, and Kiba said in fear, "That sand boy. I don't know who's worse. He is very dangerous." Hinata just stayed in her place with a very serious look and thought, "This is bad. That genin from Suna is clearly a bloodthirsty shinobi, and those types of shinobi are dangerous. Naruto-kun must be careful with him, or else we will all end up like that poor bastard." Chapter 18, The Third Test. In the Forest Tower of Death. Naruto, Sakura, and Sayuri headed towards the tower in the center of the forest so they could move on to the next test. They managed to arrive after a short trip, since they had managed to find the tower thanks to Naruto's skills, and when they arrived, they all entered a room where they saw a large sign with some words on it. "I guess we should open the scrolls if we've reached the tower," Naruto said with a smile. Naruto is right. We must know the purpose of the test in order to pass it and rest. "Sakura, let's open the scrolls at once," Sayuri said, agreeing with the blonde. The pink-haired girl nodded and began to open the scrolls with her companion. Then Naruto saw a strange sign on the scrolls and shouted, "Throw them to the ground, girls." They both threw them to the ground so they could be activated. Instantly, smoke came out of the scrolls and Irika appeared before them with a smile. "Irika-sensei?" Sakura asked, surprised. The instructor just looked at them with a smile and said, "Hi guys, it's good to see that you have managed to get here faster than other participants." "Faster? Why do you say that?" Sayuri asked, confused. "Because they have only arrived on the second day, and they have managed to arrive with plenty of time. They must be proud to be able to arrive in 2 days." Sakura was happy to be able to arrive in record time, and Naruto asked Irika, "Irika-sensei, why did it appear from the scroll?" Irika smiled even more at the enthusiasm of his favorite team and said, "We chunin must receive those who pass the second test of the exam. I am here as an emissary of an important communication." "Emissary?" Sayuri asked without understanding. Irika smiled at them and said happily, "Congratulations, they have passed the second test with honors. To celebrate, I invite you to a bowl of ramen." At that moment, Naruto threw himself into his arms while shouting with real joy, "Live ramen?" Irika laughed a little as he saw that Naruto was still the same, as were Sakura and Sayuri. And Naruto, despite being a mature and serious ninja, would never leave ramen as his favorite food. He is an Uzumaki for the love of Kami. Irika coughed a little to return to seriousness and said as he pointed to the sign, "Well, it's good to see that you are happy, but I'm not done yet. Do you see the poster on the wall?" Everyone looked at him and Sakura asked, "What does that incomplete poster mean? I don't understand." These are some guidelines that the Hokages left for you in this exam, Irika said with a smile. Some guidelines? Sayuri asked with interest. That's it, it is a metaphor. Heaven refers to the mind, while the earth represents the body. If you lack heaven, acquire the knowledge for opportunity. For example, people like Naruto, their weak point would be knowledge. You must always learn new things and prepare to fulfill your duty when your turn comes. Irika explained, looking at Naruto with a smile. Naruto could only put on an annoyed expression in his idiot costume since he had gotten over that thanks to his grandfather, but most of the people in this village didn't know that because he had to hide it. He already wanted to take off his disguise so that everyone in this village would realize what a true ninja he is and see his expressions when the Uzumaki clan rose from the dead. Then Sayuri asked with interest, "And what does the earth part mean?" Irika smiled at that question and said, "Good question, boy. If you lack the land, seek the strength to break the fields. The weak point of people like Sakura-san is the lack of physical strength. He means that they must make an effort and not stop training for a single day." Sakura only whistled at Irika's comment since she had overcome that thanks to Erasure-san, and he smiled proudly as he continued. "As soon as they have managed to dominate heaven and earth, they will be able to carry out any mission, no matter how dangerous it may be, and most importantly, they will be able to completely achieve their dreams. They will know the best way to fulfill their duty as ninjas." Naruto looked at him with serious eyes as he understood what he meant and what that meant for his goal. Then Sakura asked Irika, "But what about the word that is missing in the text?" Irika smiled at him and continued with the explanation. "It is the word that contains the essence of a chunin. Neither more nor less than human being, just as it was written on the patches. The survival test of these 5 days had no other objective than to check their basic chunin skills, and they passed it brilliantly. The chunin who holds the rank of captain is trained to lead a group. On a mission, you must never forget the importance of knowledge, strength, or the human heart. I want you to continue on your path keeping these 3 points in mind. That's it, this is the message I had to communicate to you. The third and final test awaits them. Be very careful." With those words, Naruto and the rest understood the objective of the test, and Naruto said to his 2 companions, "Let's go to a room to rest and wait for the third test." "You're right, Naruto. Let's go to the room and rest a little," Sakura said, stroking her pink hair. Thus, everyone entered the tower and entered a room to rest for the remaining days of the second test. Naruto lay down on his bed and said to the 2 in a serious tone, "The best thing will be to rest to be in good condition for the next test. I suspect that if this test was difficult, the next one will be similar. And another thing, I'm sure Hokage Gigi is having his problems with the council. But there's no need to worry because if he carries out my grandfather's plan, those damned ones have their glory days numbered." They both agreed and thus went to rest for the next test. However, Naruto remembered something and went to Sayuri to say, "By the way, sorry for that blow when we faced Orochimaru. I feel like I have to apologize." The Uchiha looked at him with a calm look and took off Sasuke's costume to say with a flirtatious smile, "In that case, give me a kiss that can satisfy me if you want to be forgiven." Naruto smiled and was going to take off his costume to kiss her, when Sayuri stopped him saying, "I have no problem with you kissing me in costume. For me, you are Naruto with or without him." The blonde smiled slyly at her and launched himself at her black-haired girl's lips to give her a heated kiss full of passion that began to melt the Uchiha. Sakura saw this with some jealousy since she didn't have a good excuse for a kiss, and she saw how they both ended the kiss after a long minute, while Naruto asked Sayuri, "Was it satisfactory enough for you to forgive me?" The black-haired woman put on a thoughtful face and said with an amused smile, "I don't know. I think now you'll have to kiss Sakura so that things are fair and she can forgive you." The pinkhead's eyes widened at her words and the blonde looked at her with a mischievous smile as he said, "For me there is no problem. If it is so that I can receive your forgiveness, with all the pleasure of my heart I will give my beautiful Sakura the same kiss." He approached a nervous Sakura slowly, which made her more nervous as she was waiting for a kiss as intimate as the one she witnessed, and when the blonde arrived, he quickly gave her a passionate kiss that instantly melted the pink-haired girl. The kiss lasted the same as it did with the Uchiha, a minute, and when it ended, Sakura fell on her bed completely enthralled by Sayuri's amused gaze of her. And good? Now am I forgiven? Naruto asked, looking at the Uchiha with a sly smile. Now yes. I guess I would love to give you this type of punishment more often, said the black-haired woman with a seductive smile as she lay down on her bed. Naruto laughed at her words and laid down on hers as he said, Well, if it is to please my Heims, I will gladly accept any of their punishments. And in that way, they fell asleep so they could regain their strength for the next test. Meanwhile, Konoha Council Room. Hiruzen was having a headache because the idiots of the council summoned him for a matter that he already knew would happen. Currently, he was observing everyone present in the room, starting with the clan leaders, Hayashi Hyuga, the leader of the Hyuga clan, who was calm and with a small knowing smile. Suminazuka, the leader of the Inuzuka clan, who had a wild smile on her face as she tried to hold back her laughter. Inoichi Yamanaka, leader of the Yamanaka clan, who was analyzing everyone without fully understanding what was happening. Shikaku Nara, leader of the Nara clan, who just rested in his seat without worrying about what was happening. Hata Kimichi, leader of the Akimichi clan, who only had a kind smile despite what was happening. Shibi Aburame, leader of the Aburame clan, who only remained calm and stoic in the face of the situation. Then, the Hokage turned his gaze towards the civilian council, with Mabuki Haruno among those present, who was somewhat confused unlike the rest of the civil leaders who were really furious and somewhat scared. Then, he turned his gaze to the three elders behind him, Hamura Mitokado, who had an expression of extreme concern on his face, Koharu Yutane, who was constantly sighing, and Danzo Shimura, who had an expression of anger and something of confusion. Hiruzen looked at the council after taking a sigh and said seriously, Very well. Could you tell me why you have summoned me before the third test of the chunin exam? At this moment, Koharu walked over and said extremely seriously, Hokage-sama, we have received reports that 3 teams from an unidentified village have been seen among the exam participants. According to the descriptions they gave us, they wear red vests and the whirlpool symbol on them. This left everyone wide-eyed, except Hayashi, Tsum and Shikaku, who were aware of the Yuzu village and Naruto's grandfather's plans. Hiruzen took a drag on his pipe and said calmly, I am aware of that. There are 3 teams from a village that asked us to participate in the exams. Problem with that? At this point, Danzo gagged his teeth and shouted angrily, Don't you realize the problem that you have just entered the village, Hiruzen? That symbol has only been used by them, which means they may have survived that massacre, and you are there so calm when a possible threat enters our village? Hiruzen just continued smoking his pipe without any problem and looked at Danzo with neutral eyes as he said, You're already jumping to conclusions, friend. There are only 3 teams that are taking the exam, nothing more. But if you're still worried about his presence in the village, you wouldn't have to worry so much. In the tournament that will be held against the daimyos, the person who is in charge of those 3 teams will come to talk to all of you. He asked me to gather them at that time so that he himself could talk about his village and about something very important with the council. So, you will just have to wait a while for them to get all the answers. The majority in the council looked at each other with doubts about who that person would be, while those who participated in the plan only smiled maliciously as they wished that day would come. Koharu and Hamura looked at each other surprised and wondering who this survivor of the most important clan of those times was, while Danzo sweated horrors. It just can't be. The Fuin clan was supposed to have exterminated all of them in that attack. I helped them with my root ninjas in exchange for some seals from their clan and giving me access to the ruins of Yuzu. In the end, I didn't get anything because they tricked me and left after cursing my eye with that damn blindness curse seal. But if one managed to survive, then I am in big trouble. I must do something, I thought with a lot of sweat. Hiruzen stood up from his seat and said with a smile, Well, if that's all they wanted to tell me, then I'm leaving. I must prepare to begin the preliminaries of the third test, and I cannot miss it. This meeting is over. And with that, he left the room while leaving those present speechless. Hiruzen headed towards his office, and upon entering, he raised a privacy barrier and then went to his desk. He took out a red box from it, and opened it to take some kind of board with a sign on it. He placed his hand on the seal and instantly, Arashi's image was shown as a hologram. "It's a pleasure to see you, old friend," the redhead said with a smile. "I say the same, Arashi-kun. I have contacted you to inform you that everything is ready. The council has summoned me to discuss the 3 teams in your village, and I have laid the groundwork for your arrival. They will be waiting for your visit, and your plan is on track," Hiruzen said with a smile. Arashi smiled evilly and said with amusement, "Good, in a short time, those damned people will pay for what they did not only to my clan and my daughter, but for all the suffering my grandson had to go through soon. The scourge of the whirlpool will fall on them all for their rotten hearts, especially that damned Danzo mummy." Back in the tower, in Team 7's room. Naruto was in the room while he was checking some things after Sakura and Sayuri went to eat something, when the door slowly opened. Naruto remained calm without looking at the door and said with a mischievous smile, "I guess you're here to get relief, right, He-behind?" Behind him, a smiling Anko looked at him with joy, and without thinking much, she hugged him tightly, placing her enormous breasts in her face. "Foxy-kun, I'm so happy you're okay. I thought that bastard had attacked them and that he had done something to you. But now you're here and I couldn't be happier in my life," she said as she rubbed her face against her blondes. Naruto smiled nervously at that, as he had run into the snake Sannin and knew it wouldn't be a good idea to keep it from him. "Anko-chan, if we meet him. I was looking for Sayuri and we had to face him to survive," she told him in a serious tone. At this, the purple-haired girl looked at him with horror and immediately began to check him in search of anything unusual. "What did he do to you? Did she hurt you? Did I put that damn stamp on you? What happened?" she shouted while she looked at him upset. But the blonde just took her hands lovingly and looked at her with a look full of affection, while saying, "Peaceful. I only altered Kurama's seal with the 5-pointed seals, so I won't be able to count on my partner for now. I just have to go to Hokage GG or go to that stupid pervert that I know is going to come to the village during these exams to have it removed. But you have nothing to worry about, my beautiful snake. Look at me, I'm here safe and sound and with you." At these words, Anko looked at him with a smile full of relief and hugged him with love while saying, "Then I'm happy. My heart is relieved since you are here with me and saved." The blonde hugged her back with a smile, and they stayed like that for a while, until the purple-haired girl separated to take off her raincoat with slow seduction, while saying, "Good, now I want you to relieve both my worry and my desire, Foxy-kun. You know what I want, right?" Naruto watched as the snake charmer took off all her clothes until she was naked with only her panties on, as he and the girls had agreed not to cross the line until he turned 16. He smiled slyly and took off his own clothes to be left only in his boxers as he said, "Of course I know, my dear He-behind. And rest assured that I will leave you satisfied until the 3rd test." He placed a sign of silence in the room to avoid curious people and took the purple-haired girl to bed, where they had a good time touching each other. Days after, the last teams managed to reach the tower in time for the last test, Kabuto's team and the Sound team. With them, there were now 10 teams and a number of 39 participants for the final test. Kabuto moved through the hallways until he ran into a person who was waiting for him, smiling. "I see that you have been very patient. Well, maybe this will help you," said the gray-haired man, handing him a card. The man took the card and inspected it with a smile. "On that card is the information for the 2nd test. I'm sure it will be very useful to you, Orochimaru-sama," Kabuto said with a bow. Before him, Orochimaru smiled maliciously and said, "Well done, Kabuto-kun. Now we just have to keep an eye on our targets and prepare everything for the fall of this village." "As you order, Orochimaru-sama," Kabuto said before leaving. Orochimaru just looked at the card with sharp eyes and said, "Kakuku, what you have shown me is interesting, Naruto-kun. I am increasingly interested to see what will happen next. I have never had such great interest in something like seeing all your steps. Keep it up and show me what the future holds for you, Naruto-kun." On the 5th day of the 2nd test, All the teams that managed to pass the second test were already in the combat arena to carry out the third test, and before them were the Sandaime with the jounin of each team plus the instructors of each test. I'm starving, Choji thought with suffering. There are still quite a few of us left, what a problem. Shikamaru thought lazily. Sasuke-kun, they have done it, Ino thought, looking at the black-haired boy with a smile. Guy looked at Naruto's team and said to Kakashi with a radiant smile, your boys are not doing bad at all. Luck must have smiled on them. But as long as mine remain, they will have nothing to do. Your own strength will determine the outcome of the next test. That's youth, Kakashi. Sometimes sweet like honey and sometimes raw, very raw. But the silver-haired man just looked at him lazily and said, Sorry, did you say something? Guy clenched his fist in fury and said with anger in his mind, It shows that you are my rival. That twisted point of yours drives me crazy. Meanwhile, Guy's team was watching Naruto's team and Tenten thought, Is that Kakashi-sensei? He is much more handsome than Guy-sensei. Guy-sensei is the most modern of all senseis, his genius shines, I just made a decision. Look at me, sensei. I will shine too, thought Lee with fire in his eyes. As I imagined, only the strongest were left. There's Sasuke and also Naruto Uzumaki. Those two are my targets in this test, Niji thought, looking at the Uchiha and the blonde. Meanwhile, the sound team was looking at Naruto's team with cold eyes while the bandages guy thought, This time we will take revenge against you. Orochimaru, who was disguised as a jounin instructor, watched Naruto's team with a smile and watched the blonde with interest. Among the teams, Suna's team was calm while Temari thought, There are 10 teams left of the 30 that entered. On the other hand, Kurenai looked at Kiba with a frown and thought, Something's wrong with Akamaru. On Kurenai's team, Kiba looked at Suna's team with interest and thought, Those from the Sand Village. Hinata looked at Naruto with a hidden smile and thought with emotion, I knew I would make it after all. An exam like this is a piece of cake for him. The time is coming soon. We can leave behind these stupid disguises and this village will finally meet the future leaders of the resurgent Uzumaki clan. Shino only watched Naruto and his classmates with interest since his insects had told him at the academy that the blonde's power was more than what was seen, and he knew that he had to be careful with him in this exam. On the other hand, Sakura was looking at everyone present with interest and she thought, Wow, we are all the newbies in the village. And it seems that the 3 Yakuza teams also passed the second test. Sayuri just looked at Hinata with a defiant smile and said, In this test I will show you that you are not above me, Hyuga. First of all, I must congratulate you. Congratulations, they have passed the second test, Anko shouted with a smile. The teams that had managed to arrive looked at her with frowns and her purple hair continued, Hokage-sama will explain to you what the third test consists of. Pay close attention to what I tell you, Anko said seriously. The Sandaime stood in front of all the participants and began to say, Before explaining the rules of the third test, I want to make one thing clear about the true objective of this exam. The real goal? A few thought. Do you know why ninjas from different countries are examined at the same time? It is said that it is to foster friendly relations between nations and increase the level of ninjas. But their true meaning should not escape them. The reason for this exam, Hiruzen said seriously. I can imagine what the real reason is, Naruto thought upon hearing his words from him. Everyone looked at him carefully and he continued with his patented shinobi look. The reason is to act as a simulation for a possible war. This exam will help them foster a relationship with their peers from other villages so that in a future war they can fight in collaboration and friendship. After all, in previous wars there has been cooperation between villages for the same purpose, and that is what must be strengthened among us, the union of our strength and power to protect what we value most. That is why you will strengthen your ties with a fight between yourselves. And can we really do it with this exam? Sakura asked with doubts. The Sandaime smiled at Sakura's question and continued with his explanation of her. That's how it is. But even so, they must keep in mind that they are responsible for the prestige of their country. They must fight to the death for their village. Prestige? Sakura asked again, even more confused. Keep in mind that they will be watching you at all times. Important personalities have been invited to witness this exam. Among them are the feudal lords who entrust them with missions, and even more important, the hokages and feudal lords of other countries. Even though we are in an alliance, the power differences between us set the course of our history. The strongest countries will be the ones that receive the greatest number of missions. On the contrary, weak countries will see how requests decrease. Hiruzen explained seriously. Most understood this concept, and the Hokage decided to move on to the explanation at once. However, a certain person appeared before him with a bow and said while coughing, "I apologize, Hokage-sama. Gecko Hate introduces himself to you. Allow me to be the referee of this test." The Sandaime smiled and said, "Forward." Hate looked at the participants and said, "I'm Hate, nice to meet you. Before I explain the third test, I need you to do something. To begin the pre-selection, we must do something first." "Pre-selection? What is this guy saying with a look like he's going to die soon? Haven't we passed the second test already?" Naruto shouted in his idiot costume. "Normally yes, but since there are too many, there will be a pre-selection to reduce the number of participants. After all, there will be many special guests in the last test, and we can't let them watch useless combat. With that said, we will begin the pre-selection, and to begin, I must ask those who do not want to take the test to leave immediately," Hate said with a very cold look. A certain person in the arena just smiled and raised his hand as he said, I'm leaving." Everyone looked at the person with serious eyes, and Hate looked at his list as he said, "Well, Kabuto Yakushi from the Leaf Village. You can leave." Kabuto smiled friendly at his words and left the arena while being seen by practically everyone in the room. Orochimaru looked at him with a sinister smile, and Kabuto just gave him hers in pure amusement. "Fufufu, have fun with this, Orochimaru-sama," Kabuto thought evilly. He then looked at Sasuke and Naruto as he left, and thought with amusement, "We will see us again. I will wait for you impatiently, Sasuke-kun, and for you too, Naruto-kun." Naruto watched him leave with a look full of suspicion and thought, "This worries me. Him retreating must be part of Orochimaru's plan. That means this exam is his pass to attack the village." Hate looked at those present and said, "Well, it seems that there are no more deserters." Hate looked at the participants, and seeing that no one raised their hand to leave, he continued with his explanation. "Well, to continue, the pre-selection will consist of one-on-one combats. They will face each other under the same conditions as a normal battle. As there are 38, 19 battles will be fought, and the winners will be able to move on to the third test. The rules are simple. They will fight until one dies, loses consciousness, or surrenders. On the other hand, I can determine if one is not capable of fighting and finishing the fight. Now, look at the screen." Everyone looked at a large screen on the wall, and Hate continued. "On this screen, the names of those who will fight in each combat will be shown. Now, let's see who will face each other in the first confrontation." The screen showed several names as if it were a roulette wheel, until it stopped on 2 names. Sasuke Uchiha vs. Yoroi Akado. "I had to be the first," Sayuri thought with a smile. "Heh, I'm dying," Yoroi thought maliciously. Naruto looked at Sayuri with a smile, and Hate said, "Okay, the 2 selected ones, come forward." Sayuri and Yoroi stood before Hate while looking at each other, and the instructor said, "The first fight will be played by Akado Yoroi and Sasuke Uchiha. Before we start, does anyone have anything to object?" "No," said Yoroi. "Everything is fine here," Sayuri said with a smile. Orochimaru looked at Sayuri with a creepy smile, and both opponents moved away a little to begin the battle. Meanwhile, the other participants were in the stands and then watched as the fight began. They saw how Sayuri was shaking with excitement, and Yoroi thought maliciously, "Juju, it seems that the cursed seal is making him suffer." "Well, from now on the first fight will begin," Hate said seriously. Orochimaru looked at Sayuri with a malicious smile and thought, "Hey, Yoroi's abilities are out of the ordinary. I suspect this is going to be hell for you, Sasuke-kun." Chapter 19. The preliminaries begin. Everyone was watching the fight with excitement, while Sayuri watched Yoroi cautiously. Well, you can start, Hate said before disappearing into Shansin. Yoroi made a hand seal and said, Let's go there. Yoroi threw some shurikens towards Sayuri, which she only blocked easily with her kunai, and then she also threw some shurikens that Yoroi blocked with her kunai. Then, Yoroi launched himself against Sayuri and grabbed her head to start sucking her chakra. So that's it, Sayuri said, looking at Yoroi with a frown. Jujuju, I see that you realized it, Yoroi said maliciously. Orochimaru saw this with an evil smile and thought, Exact Yoroi's special ability is to absorb the opponent's chakra. This incredible absorption technique allows you to suck the opponent's physical and mental strength with the palm of your hand. And when I have sucked out all your chakra, Sasuke, you will. I have no choice but to use the power of my seal. Go ahead, unleash that power, that wonderful strength. Sayuri looked at Yoroi with cold eyes as he continued to suck her chakra while Yoroi looked at him superiorly. Sayuri pushed him away from him, but Yoroi lunged at him again to continue sucking his chakra while he screamed, Suck every last drop of your chakra, let's finish this. But at that moment, everyone saw how Sayuri gave a huge kick to Yoroi's chin to throw him into the air, and Lee saw this with wide eyes. That's my technique, he said without being able to believe it. Yoroi flew into the air and felt Sayuri appear behind him as she said, Now I'm going to use something they taught me. Yoroi looked at her with sweat and said, It's the shadow dance technique. Sayuri smiled mischievously and said, Fit this. His mark began to spread across his body and black flames began to be seen on it. Everyone, especially Orochimaru, saw this, and Sayuri just smiled as she felt the power of nature envelop her as she began to move quickly through the air to execute the technique that Erashur had taught her. She kicked Yoroi in the abdomen, then moved quickly through the air while images of her were seen due to her great speed. She landed a series of kicks in a spinning succession, as if she were a whirlpool, and when Yoroi was once again in the middle, Sayuri spun like a wheel in the air to deliver a powerful kick to her face as she screamed, Uzumaki dance, world dance. Yoroi fell to the ground and Hate checked his condition to say, This fight ends here. Which means that the winner of the first fight is Sasuke Uchiha and moves on to the next test. Applause could be heard in the arena and Sayuri began to go to the stands while smiling at her victory. Meanwhile, Guy said with his eyes wide open, That technique. I have only seen it in 2 people. This caught the attention of everyone near him, and the black-haired woman with red eyes was the one who explained. Years ago, 2 women, 2 great friends, fought with that style of taijutsu. It was created by a redhead that we all admired in our youth, and she had shown it to her best friend Deella as a sign of her sisterhood. Deella, Kakashi, did you dare to teach the Uchiha taijutsu that she does not belong to? He looked at the silver-haired man with fury, and he just sighed while saying, You don't have to worry. Not even I know that style of taijutsu, even though I have seen her use it so many times that I never dared to copy it. Sasuke learned it from the only person who had the right to do it, and if you were wondering who and why, he could only tell everyone that they will know everything soon. You just have to be patient. Everyone looked at him with curiosity, and Naruto thought with amusement, That grandfather of mine. He taught him the taijutsu technique that is taught to the main Uzumaki family. My mother always used that style of taijutsu, and she was very famous for it. I think she taught it to her because she knew that my mother's best friend, Mikoto-san, also used it because my mother taught it to her. It seems that she thought it was right that her daughter also learned it as a symbol of unity between our clans. On the other hand, Hinata looked at Sayuri with a vein popping on her forehead and thought with some fury. Blissful Uchiha, she already won Erashur-sama's affections and obtained the taijutsu of the Uzumaki clan. I guess we are rivals in every way since he also taught it to me and even helped me combine it with the Hyukin of the Hyuga, something my father is so happy about. But I won't lose to her. When Sayuri arrived with the others and congratulated her, the screen began to rotate the names until it stopped on the following combatants. Abumi Zaka vs. Genin of Yuzu. In short, Yuzu's Genin managed to win by having understood Zaka's sound ability, and defeated him with a powerful water attack. After the victory of Yuzu's genin, the screen shouted the names again until it stopped at the following names: Misumi Tsuga versus the other genin of Yuzu. The battle was quick as Yuzu's genin demonstrated great power with his Fuinjutsu, impressing everyone and causing the interest of a certain snake. Then, the screen showed the following names: Sakura Haruno versus Kunoichi of Yuzu. Sakura opened her eyes at this and said, "It seems that I have a very difficult fight. I can't underestimate anyone from Naruto's village, so I better get serious in this fight." The pink-haired girl began to walk towards the combat arena, when Naruto stopped her and whispered, "Be careful. Fight with the weapons you have, but don't show too much." She smiled gratefully at him for his advice and continued on her way to the arena where a white-haired genin with a kind look was waiting for her. When they were both face to face, I-8 raised her hand to say, "The fight between Sakura Haruno and Megumi Kazuki will begin. Are you both ready?" "Yes," Sakura said with determination. "Of course," Megumi said happily. "Good. Start," Hate shouted before disappearing in a shunshin. When it disappeared, Sakura quickly jumped from where she was and lunged at Megumi with her fists ready to hit her. "Shinero," she shouted with power. Megumi just kept her smile on her face, and everyone watched as the blow connected squarely, creating a huge tremor in the sand. "That strength is comparable to Tsunade's," Hiruzen thought with sweat. "How did Sakura become so strong?" Kiba shouted in disbelief. Naruto watched everything with calculating eyes as Hinata did, since they knew that Megumi was not a kunoichi that could be defeated with just that. They both knew her as she was Darkness' girlfriend and knew that she possessed a very problematic Kekkai Genkai. Everyone watched as the dust disappeared to reveal a still smiling Megumi as she was one step away from the pink-haired girl's blow. "Good blow," she said with emotion. This brought a drop of sweat to everyone, especially Sakura, and Naruto patted his face as he thought, "She's always been a weirdo. He keeps that weird smile no matter what, even when he fights and it confuses his opponents. She never stops smiling, displaying a cheerful attitude in battle and in daily life. I have only managed to see that she stopped smiling once, and did it in front of Darkness, when she opened up to him, crying into her chest. Sakura will have to be careful with her and not be confused by her smile." Sakura looked at Megumi with clear confusion, but she felt the danger instinct, and could see Megumi preparing her fist as she said, "Now it's my turn, let me show you my explosion fist." Sakura's eyes widened and she jumped back just in time to dodge the white-haired girl's fist that connected with the floor of the arena, and everyone watched with wide eyes as an explosion occurred that shook the entire place. "What was that?" Ino shouted, grabbing the railing. "An explosion?" Kurenai wondered, stupefied. "That was a much bigger explosion than an explosive tag," Shikamaru shouted in disbelief. "Who is this girl?" Tenten shouted with her eyes wide open. An explosion of youth, Lee shouted with stars in his eyes. Naruto looked at the sand calmly and thought seriously. "Explosive body. That's Megumi's Kekkai Genkai. Her body is capable of generating explosions of different levels, causing damage not only to her opponents, but also to the battlefield. That is the lineage of the Kazuki clan." However, they were greatly feared by such a Kekkai Genkai because they could destroy a village with 1 or 2 people and were massacred. Megumi was one of the survivors and was rescued by her grandfather. Sakura will have to use her intelligence to be able to deal with Megumi's exploding body, or she won't be able to pass this obstacle. When the smoke cleared, everyone could see a huge hole in the ground where Megumi was standing and Sakura far away from her. The pink-haired girl saw how the white-haired girl stood up with that strange smile, and said happily, "Did you like my fist? Now more are coming." And he launched himself against the pink-haired woman with his fists ready, so she had to begin to dodge them with agility. Everyone watched as Sakura quickly dodged Megumi's blows, as if she were dancing a dance, and after several dodged blows, she sent a powerful blow to the white-haired girl. The blow connected and everyone thought that Sakura had gained some advantage. But they opened their eyes when they saw how the pink-haired girl was sent flying by an explosion in the place where she landed the blow. "Ace? Did her body explode when he hit her?" Choji shouted with his eyes open. This is incredible, Temari said, dumbfounded. Niji saw everything with the Byakugan activated and said seriously. That part of his body was covered with chakra after Sakura-san landed the blow. It seems that the girl covered her body with that explosive ability when she hit her so that she would explode as a counterattack. Everyone opened their eyes, dumbfounded by the information, and Naruto sighed as he thought. That is the wonder of the explosive core. Its users can manipulate it in such a way that they can cause explosions in any part of their body. When they master it, they can use it as the perfect counterattack against taijutsu by exploiting the place where they are hit. It's really troublesome, actually. Everyone watched as Sakura stood up from the ground and looked at Megumi with calm eyes as she had some of her clothes destroyed and parts of her body hurt by the explosion. But she and the others could notice how Megumi was holding the place where Sakura had hit her and winning in pain, even with that smile on her face. It seems that Sakura's blows still affected him, Kiba said in amazement. Then they are not immune to damage. They can counterattack with their body, but they are also prone to damage, Shino said calmly. Naruto smiled at what he had heard and thought. Obviously. Their bodies are vulnerable to physical damage even with their perfect counterattack. But in this case, only a suicidal fighter throws himself at someone who will seriously hurt him every time he hits him. Then, everyone watched with wide eyes as Sakura showed a smile very similar to Naruto's cunning smile, and the blonde thought with sweat. What has Sakura become now? Don't tell me you turned her into a suicidal fighter, Grandpa? The pink-haired girl launched herself like a torpedo towards the white-haired girl and began a round of blows to her entire body, which Megumi imitated with a big smile, throwing explosive blows at the pink-haired girl that shook the entire place. What is the forehead doing? That's literally killing yourself, Ino shouted, upset. Not really, Ino. That's fighting with all your determination, Kakashi told him with a grin. Everyone looked at him with interest, except Naruto and Hinata, who already knew what he was referring to, and the silver-haired boy continued explaining. Sometimes you will have to fight with everything you have and even risk your life to achieve victory. There are several reasons to do this: to complete a mission, to protect a companion, or even to protect your honor and pride. It's those kinds of battles that are worth fighting with your life. That's what Sakura is proving now, that she will fight whoever she is in order to prove that she really is a kunoichi. Ino looked at her rival with a totally dumbfounded look, while Naruto looked at her with a smile since he knew that Ino actually loved her friend very much. Then, they watched as Megumi stopped hitting Sakura and hugged her completely with a mischievous smile. It's time to show you my best technique since you are a great opponent. Body explosion, the white-haired girl shouted with excitement. Everyone realized what he was going to do and Ino screamed in terror. Sakura, get out of there. But it was too late, and the entire sand was covered in a huge explosion that almost sent everyone flying. It took a while until everything calmed down, and they turned their gaze towards the combat arena to see what happened. What happened? Did Sakura lose? They asked with concern. We'll see, Niji said neutrally. Then, they saw Megumi appear from the smoke, kneeling on the ground while breathing heavily and spitting out some blood. It seems that technique took its toll on her, Kiba said when he saw her. Yes, and also, the blows that Sakura gave him also affected him. Those blows were really strong and that girl must be in very bad condition, Sayuri said seriously. Naruto looked at his user friend with a frown and thought. It is certainly a devastating technique. His body explosion will explode all over his enemy if he manages to trap them in his deadly embrace of him. At least she has managed to master her ability, since before she would explode at the slightest touch, and that would distance her from everyone around her. But by mastering it, she can now control when it explodes and when it doesn't. The most affected is darkness. When he makes her angry, it is not unusual to see the poor girl running away from her while she asks him for a hug with that creepy smile. The white-haired girl got up with difficulty from the ground with that huge smile, and hate began to say, "The winner is..." But everyone watched with open eyes as a hand rested on Megumi's shoulder through the smoke and a familiar voice said, "Wow, I never thought I would have to use my last resort. But at least I'll be able to try it once." The smoke cleared to reveal Sakura standing with a look worthy of a kunoichi. But what surprised everyone the most were the black lines that surrounded her body as if it were a painting. Isn't that? Kurenai shouted without believing it. Kakashi! Asuma shouted, looking at the silver-haired boy with wide eyes. Did you manage to? Guy shouted in the same way. Kakashi looked at Sakura in amazement, since he was not informed of such a thing, and thought, this must be Arashir-sama's doing. What's that? What are those lines on the body of her forehead? Ino asked with an amazed look. Naruto smiled with amusement and thought, this is your doing, right, Grandpa? You saw that he was compatible, and you gave him the foundations to achieve it. I guess it's true what they say about you. You can see the true potential of any promise with just a glance. Hiruzen was stunned at this and thought in disbelief. That's the Byakugo no, and I've only seen it in Mito-sama and Tsunade-chan, but if Sakura-chan has managed to catch up, then… Fufufu, you're still the same as always, Arashir-kun. You managed to create great shinobi even. Everyone watched as Sakura's body slowly recovered from her burns and how the pink-haired girl smiled excitedly as she prepared her fist, ready to hit the white-haired girl. I appreciate it. You have been a great opponent to prove my worth as a kunoichi. It's been a great fight. Megumi looked at her in amazement for a while, but then gave a huge friendly smile as she said, Hee, I say the same, your great friend. Sakura smiled at her in the same way as being considered her friend and hit her with power, sending her flying towards the wall of the arena. Everyone watched with their mouths open as the white-haired girl's body hit the wall, creating a crater in it, and when Hate went to check on her condition, she screamed loudly. Megumi Kazuki can't continue fighting. Sakura Haruno moves on to the next round. Everyone was speechless at what they had seen, but Naruto shouted in his idiot costume. That's it, Sakura-chan, you were incredible. The pink-haired girl looked at him with a smile full of affection and showed the victory sign for him. Ino saw this with wide eyes and wondered in extreme confusion. What's going on here? Chapter 20, The Preliminaries continue. After that impressive fight, the screen showed the following names. The Battle of Temari vs. Genin. The battle was really quick as the Genin surrendered, saying that he was a gentleman and wouldn't hurt a lady. The victory went to the blonde, who was very angry because of her easy victory, and after that, the screen showed the following names. Tenten vs. Kunoichi of Yuzu. The battle was quick. Yuzu's kunoichi took her down with her own version of a storage seal that absorbed all of her weapons and then returned them to her with various elements in them, defeating the brunette in the saddest way. After that, the screen showed the following names. Tsuchikin vs. Hinata Hyuga. The victory belonged to Hinata, as she attacked the sound kunoichi, showing a little of her true face, and the poor thing ended up defeated by a powerful blow to her stomach. Naruto discreetly created a clone and sent it to follow Kin to the medical area to send her to Yuzu for her grandfather to take in. She was a little weak with women, don't blame him. He thought that it was not her fault that she had followed a pedophile snake, and he did not want anything done to a beautiful girl for having failed. After that victory for the Hyuga, the screen showed the following fight. Shikamaru Nara vs. Yasu. The victory was Shikamaru's, thanks to the enormous mind of the Nara, who managed to find a way to deal with the shinobi's sound ability. After that fight, the screen showed the following two names. Inuzuka Kiba vs. Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto sighed, knowing that it was not yet time to reveal himself to the entire village, and went down to the arena to confront the mutt with his skills in his idiot mask. It all happened in a very comical way, because the blonde won by a fart. Literally by a damn fart. Everyone was with their eyes wide open watching how the Inuzuka suffered from having sniffed the stinky fart with his very sensitive nose, while the same blonde performed his own version of Lee's lion blast that he had seen him use one day in his training with Guy. Called Uzumaki burst. After defeating the mutt, he returned to the stands and Sayuri asked him in a whisper, "Was the fart planned?" Naruto could only put on an expression full of agony and said, "If I'm honest, no. I really wanted to shoot one and I had held on for so long that it came out right at that moment. I have never had such a shameful victory." Sakura and Sayuri were laughing softly at seeing that their favorite blonde could be a normal boy, just as the Hyuga was also laughing at her fiancé's misfortune of her. And after Naruto's battle against Kiba, the following battles were somewhat entertaining. Ino Yamanaka vs Kunoichi of Yuzu. Ino lost to Yuzu's Kunoichi because she had managed to get through her mental technique and knocked out the blonde with a lightning jutsu. Naruto looked at the blonde with a smile, knowing that she had fought with everything she had with the intention of demonstrating her determination as a kunoichi after having seen Sakura in her combat, but how she had not been trained except in her clan techniques of her. And by the stupid council standards, he didn't stand a chance against a trained kunoichi from Yuzu. He made a mental note to talk to her when she revealed herself to the entire village. Then, the screen showed the following two names. Niji Hyuga vs Genin of Yuzu. The battle was close. The Yuzu shinobi proved to be a great opponent for the Hyuga's Hyukin, but Niji defeated him by using the Kaiten, and after blocking the boy's fast attacks, he attacked him with the 8 Tigrams, 64 palms. Naruto saw this with cold eyes, watching as the Hyuga prodigy looked at him with that emotionless gaze and knew he was coming after him. He sighed at the problem he had and saw 2 new names appear on the screen. Yuzu Genin vs Shino Aburame. Despite his insect techniques, the Yuzu Genin had a kind of taijutsu that resembled karate combined with Suiton jutsus that did not allow Shino to achieve victory. After the victory of Yuzu's Genin, the screen showed the following names. Yuzu Genin vs Sabaka no Kankuro. The Genin had to retreat before Kankuro used his puppet to lock him up as Naruto motioned for him to do so he wouldn't get hurt. He did not want anyone from his Yuzu family to be killed by this tournament. After that battle, the following fight was the penultimate of the preliminaries. Sabaka no Gaara vs Rock Lee. Everyone opened their eyes surprised by this revelation, and then, Hate shouted. Very well, the last combatants, get down here right now. Sabaka no Gaara and Rock Lee, you are the last. Gaara disappeared into a shunshin of sand and reappeared on the battlefield while looking at Lee with murderous eyes. Lee could only clench his fist in excitement and shouted. Yosh, now I will be able to show my flames of youth. Very well said, Lee, go there and shine with your beautiful youth, Guy shouted with a big smile. Guy sensei, Lee shouted, hugging him. Lee, Guy shouted, also hugging him. The 2 green spandex shinobi were hugging each other, as the famous Radiant Sun Genjutsu formed before them. What the hell is that? Sayuri shouted, horrified. Ah, my eyes! Sakura shouted, covering herself. But what actin' hell is that thing? Kiba shouted, trying not to see it. It's horrible, was the only thing Shino said normally. Naruto remained with his eyes closed and calm as he was thinking about a bowl of ramen with Hinata, Halibel, and 2 purple-haired girls inside, motioning for him to join them. He smiled with satisfaction since he had learned that thinking about something really nice could protect you from that infernal genjutsu. After that horrible genjutsu, Lee jumped over the fence to fall before Gaara with a big smile. Yosh! I'm excited, he said with a bright smile. Gaara just remained with his murderous look at him and said, Stop talking and give me your blood like a mother. Lee smiled kindly at him, and thus, the last match of the preliminaries began. Lee began to move quickly towards Gaara, with a speed that made it difficult to see him, and Gaara just remained motionless in his place as the sand moved around him stealthily. At this, several of the spectators were speechless at what they saw. Can you manipulate sand? Sayuri asked with open eyes. Is it some Kekkei Genkai? Sakura asked, impressed. Naruto watched these 2 fights to see how the brow would do with a sand manipulator. Lee appeared before Gaara with a kick as he shouted. Hello everyone. Gaara remained calm and manipulated the sand in his gourd to grab Lee's leg and send him flying towards the wall, creating a crater with his body. It seems like he has masterful control with sand to be able to throw someone with it, Naruto thought, looking at the combat seriously. Lee just pirouetted out of the wall and landed in the center of the arena while shouting. I'm fine. Some sweated at his exclamation, and Gaara looked at him with cold eyes. Then, Lee launched himself at Gaara with a fast and powerful fist, which the redhead blocked with his sand, and then gave him a kick that the sand also blocked with ease. Lee walked away from the redhead with some frustration and thought. He hasn't moved an inch, shit. Even with how fast Lee is, his attacks see and hit him, Sakura said worriedly. From what I see, the brow will need all his power to be able to hit it, Naruto said seriously. No physical attack will work against Gaara. The sand moves on its own and serves as a shield. It is perfect protection. So far no one has managed it. No one has ever hurt Gaara, Kankuro said next to them. Everyone looked at him with wide eyes and Sakura said. So, Gaara is not the one who actually controls the sand, it is the sand itself that protects him. Actually, it works both ways. The sand acts of his own will to protect him, but Gaara can also manipulate it. In simple terms, for defense, the sand acts of its own will, but for attack, Gaara must manipulate it to attack. Kankuro explained with a frown. Everyone watched as Lee continued attacking Gaara's sand with several blows and Ino asked with concern. Why do you limit yourself to attacking with taijutsu? Melee attack is useless, I should attack from a little further away with ninjutsu. It's not that Lee doesn't want to use ninjutsu, Guy said next to him. Everyone looked at him in amazement at that and Sayuri asked with interest. Because? Guy smiled as he looked at his student and said. It just can't. How? Almost everyone shouted in amazement. Guy sighed and began to explain. Lee was born without being able to channel chakra, so he cannot ninjutsu or genjutsu. It just can't be. Then how could she have gotten here? Sakura shouted without believing it. When I met him, Lee was a lost cause. He didn't have any kind of talent. His only option to live as a ninja was in taijutsu. There aren't many ninjas like him who can't master ninjutsu or genjutsu. Everyone would consider him a failure as a ninja, but... Guy responded with a proud smile. At these words, everyone looked at Lee in amazement, while the eyebrowed man continued to fight against the redhead. The sand moved at high speed with the intention of capturing Lee, which the brow only quickly avoided with jumps and agile evasion. The sand moved as if it were hands, always trying to capture Lee, and Gaara remained very calm while he watched the brow jump towards the stone fingers of the sand. Guy looked at him with a smile and said, That's why he can win. Then he showed his thumb to his student and shouted with enormous emotion. Read, release them, you have my permission. Lee looked at him in surprise and shouted. But Guy-sensei, he told me. He told me not to do it unless I had to defend myself from the simultaneous attack of several enemies. But Guy showed him the thumb again and with a bright smile shouted. Forget what I said, you have my permission. Lee smiled at his teacher's words and immediately began to remove some types of weights from his ankles while everyone watched him in amazement. Dumbbells? Can that boy seriously be able to overcome Gaara's arena just by taking off a few weights? Tamari asked without believing it. Dumbbells? Wait, Master Guy, did you? Sayuri shouted, looking at the frowning teacher with open eyes. Lee held his weights in the air and shouted. Very good, now I can move much more easily. With that, he dropped the weights to the ground, and when they fell, they caused a huge explosion that shook the area. Guy, you're really overdoing it, Kakashi thought with a lot of sweat. Guy just smiled and gave a signal to Lee while shouting. Go ahead, Reed. Lee smiled excitedly, and in an instant, everyone saw how there was no one at the statue. I have disappeared, Sakura shouted, impressed. Naruto and Sayuri moved their sight at incredible speed and could see how Lee moved at a much greater speed than before and launched a direct blow at Gaara in the face that he managed to block by a hair. Awesome! It's faster than before. His speed is comparable to mine and his power is surprising. Is this what someone who has been called a failure has come to, just through hard work? Naruto thought in wonder. It was close to. Sakura thought surprised. How fast? Sayuri thought excitedly. Lee continued to send blows against the redhead, who continued to block them as best he could with his sand, and Guy continued saying with pure pride. He does not know how to use ninjutsu or genjutsu. That is precisely why he has invested time, effort, and his entire being in perfecting his taijutsu. So, even though he can't do other types of attacks, he is invincible. A specialist in hand-to-hand combat. Then, Everyone saw how Gaara was hit in the face by a kick from Lee, before everyone's stunned gaze. No one can match Lee's speed of him. He who warns is not a traitor. And I already said that he is strong, Guy said with more pride. Lee stood before Gaara with excitement and shouted, "Good, now the show begins." Lee then began moving across the field at high speed and then kicked him in the jaw from below, sending him flying. "This is not over," Lee shouted with emotion. He launched a quick succession of kicks at Gaara's face, lifting him further into the air until he was behind the redhead. "So I'll use that," Naruto thought when he saw it. The bandages on Lee's arms began to surround Gaara until they wrapped him like a top, and then Lee began to spin with him towards the ground at high speed. "Frontal lotus flower," Lee shouted loudly. Both impacted the ground with great power, creating a large crater in the ground, and when the smoke cleared, everyone could see with open eyes how there was a kind of shell of sand in the shape of Gaara. "Sand armor?" Sakura shouted when she saw it. Lee had landed near him and was looking at him in amazement. Then Guy looked at Lee with a big smile and shouted loudly, "Lee, the lotus flower blooms again." Kakashi looked at him with wide eyes and shouted, "You don't want me to use that?" "What thing? What are you talking about?" Sakura asked without understanding. Kakashi could only watch the fight, knowing that he couldn't change the minds of this pair of fools, and said, "The 8 body doors, or better known as the hidden lotus flower technique." 8 body doors? What is that? Sayuri asked, interested. Kakashi sighed and asked Guy, "Guy, I guess you can open all the doors, right?" Guy smiled slyly and said, 5. Kakashi sighed again and Sayuri asked them, "What are the 8 doors?" Guy smiled at the Uchiha and said, "We talk about getting rid of limitations, as preparation to execute the hidden lotus flower. There are points in the body where the chakra is concentrated as vital spaces. From the head down, there are 8 gates that limit chakra capacity. The lotus flower is executed by opening the first door called aperture, and by doing so, it releases the restrictions that the brain has. However, it is also a double-edged sword, since if you open the 8 doors, you will have to pay the price with your life." Everyone watched as Lee concentrated deeply, and a green aura covered him as his hair rose, and he shouted, "Third open door, door of life." "His skin has turned red, and what is that green aura?" Sakura shouted, watching everything in amazement. But Lee didn't stop there and concentrated even more as he shouted, "Fourth open door, door of wound." At that instant, the entire battlefield shook and shattered, with large rocks flying into the air. Lee disappeared from his position and launched himself against Gaara to begin hitting him with a speed that no one imagined they would see. Gaara's body rose into the air from the blows, and Lee appeared before him to power slam him into the ground. However, he reappeared behind him and hit him again. Thus, he began a rapid succession of blows against the redhead until the dark-eyed man appeared before him with his fist ready and shouting, "Let's go for the last one, 5th open door, door of spirituality," Lee shouted with fury. He lunged at Gaara to hit him in the stomach, causing him to vomit blood. Then, she used her bandages to hold Gaara's body to pull him towards him. "Hidden lotus flower," Lee shouted, hitting Gaara in the stomach. They both fell to the ground, causing a huge explosion that shook the entire place, and everyone had to hold on due to the tremor that shook them. When everything calmed down, they turned their attention to the sand as the sand fell, revealing the result of the battle. When everything became clear, they could see how Lee was getting up from the ground with the last strength he had. "I did it!" Sakura and Sayuri shouted with joy. But then they saw in horror how sand was collecting on one of Lee's arms and one of Lee's legs, while in the sand crater, a furious Gaara was cruelly extending his hand as he said, "Sabakaku Arena." Everyone watched in extreme horror as the sand broke the limbs of one of Lee's sides mercilessly, and how he fell to the ground unable to move. Then, they witnessed how Gaara sent more sand towards the poor browhead, and at the moment she was going to cover him, she was dispersed by a man who was looking at the redhead with fury. "Why are you saving him?" Gaara asked, looking at the man with a confused expression. Guy looked at him seriously and only said, "He is one of my dear students." Everyone saw this with wide eyes, and Gaara just picked up the sand from his gourd to leave while saying boredly, "Bah, it happened." Then, Hade coughed and shouted, "The winner is Sabaka no Gaara." After that surprising battle, the screen showed the last names of the preliminaries. Choji Akimichi vs. Dosu. In short, the battle was quick as Dosu used his glove to throw the human ball that Choji had become to the side, and he ended up crashing into a wall, totally defeated. And with this, the preliminaries of the third test end. Hate shouted loudly,
"Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.